Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today's video is a compilation video. I wanted to get that warning out there straight away because I know some of you love the compilations, some of you absolutely hate them at the same time, and that's okay, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to click off if you wanted to. The reason I'm doing this compilation video today is, I've got a bit of a shaky voice just lately, so instead of doing my usual second video today, I'm just going to give it the afternoon off. As I said, please switch off if you don't like a compilation. Huge thank you for being here today. Much love to you, and let's crack on with it. And our first story is titled, Would I Be the Arsehole If I Cancel My Vacation Because My In-Laws Are Following Us on Vacation? My husband is very close with his parents. His parents moved to the other side of the country to be closer to him and his siblings. They also babysit our kids 3 times in a week, so we see them weekly. Some weeks we see them also in the weekends. I'm also grateful that they babysit our kids and that they are amazing grandparents. We pay them a small amount every month, but seeing them so often is taking a toll on me. His parents don't have any friends or close relatives. That's why they often spend time with us. I don't mind seeing them a few times in a week, but some weeks it's just too much and overwhelming. I really miss my family. We try to see my parents 1 to 2 times in a month. They live a little far, so that's why we can't visit them often. My parents suggested a family trip to their home country next year. Me, my siblings and our families all agreed to go. When my parents-in-law found out, they also told us that they will be going. They come from the same country, so they booked the exact same flight. They're going because we are going. I told my husband my worries about them following us on vacation. I just want to enjoy my vacation with my family. I just want to take a break from my in-laws. My husband agreed, but he said he can't ban them from going. He told us that my in-laws said that they have their own planning and that we can just do our thing and that they won't bother us. Well, today my sister asked my father-in-law what their vacation plans were, and surprise, my in-laws have the same planning as us. They will visit the same places at the same time as us. Not the whole planning, but a lot is overlapping with our plans. I told my husband about this and he did not know about this either, but his reactions was very bland. He told me to not worry and that we just follow our own planning and to not mind my in-laws. We already had discussions about this situation a few times before, and my husband told me we can just cancel the whole trip as a solution. But I just want to spend some time with my family without my in-laws following us. Talking to them is difficult for me because of the language barrier. My husband doesn't see any problems with his parents following us. My sister jokingly told me that I can't escape from them. I really want to cancel the trip now, but she told me that my parents are really looking forward to this vacation and just to suck it up. She told me that I would be the arsehole if I cancel everything just because of my in-laws wanting to spend time with us on vacation. So, would I be the arsehole for cancelling the vacation? Edits. Wow, I woke up to 200 plus messages. I'm trying to read through everything. My husband did share the itinerary with his parents. His reason was that he didn't see any problems with it because his parents told him many times that they wouldn't bother us and that they wanted to meet up a few times. Now I'm hearing that my in-laws will spend the Chinese New Year's with my family on vacation, and no, we can't change the date for the flights. We booked early so the flight tickets were pretty cheap. Now the tickets are $1,000+ per person. We can change the itinerary, so I'm going to talk with my husband about it. My husband is a great husband, but he's very laid back. I will talk with him again. He knows this is bothering me. Now, in the edit, you said that your husband did share the itinerary with his parents, whether this was on purpose or, it was just a silly mistake, because his reasoning was that the parents told him many times that they wouldn't bother us. And I don't think I'd cancel the trip for this. I think this can be solved, and maybe pretty easily. I know it's not easy for everyone, and it might be a difficult conversation, but your husband needs to speak to his parents and tell them simply that you, as a family, need some time away. You need your own time to spend time with her family, which hasn't happened in a long time. And OP is really looking forward to it, and she wants to spend that quality time with them. If someone told me that, I'd be totally understanding of the situation. If they don't understand that, that's a them problem, I'm afraid. And I would change up your itinerary so things suit you and you get that alone quality time. They can make their decisions, but in reality, they should be respecting your choices here. 7 That's a Nope says, not the arsehole, but your husband gave them all your travel info and itinerary right, which was already covered. They know your exact flights and what you'll be doing for every step of the trip. They don't have that much overlap by coincidence. The only way they'll be able to plan so much overlap is if someone gave them your itinerary, and that someone isn't your parents or your sister. Your husband is talking about cancelling because he knows you won't do it. He knows you won't actually sabotage the trip with your family to avoid his family. Can you change around your itinerary with your family and do all the things you guys want to do, but at different times so it's not overlapping with his parents? Then don't tell your in-laws the changes. Also, probably don't tell your husband. Secrets in a marriage are bad, so maybe just tell him the itinerary while there isn't set in stone, but he can choose if he wants to join his parents for things or you and your family. Or leave hubby home and tell him his parents he's not going, so if they want to spend time with him, they need to stay home too, since they all cook this up together. No one cares says not the arsehole. I'm sure he knew otherwise. How did they know what you were doing? Honestly, I wouldn't disappoint your parents. I'll just tell your husband you need a break from his family. So you're going to spend time with your family and he can go entertain his parents. Change the plans on what you're doing or switch the days around and don't tell him. When you get there, either stay with your parents or just leave before he gets up. Tell him you get kids half the week, he gets them the other half. If he complains, tell him the next time either grow a backbone and learn to tell his family no, or he can learn to keep his mouth shut and not plan with his parents behind your back for the next vacation. Also, is it possible for you and your parents to change your plane tickets and go visit somewhere else? Maybe he can take the kids for a few days. One more comment from Kiki V, who says not the arsehole. You're not placing the blame where it really should be. Your husband. He planned this with his parents behind your back and is playing dumb. It's time for you to put your foot down and take some time away from your in-laws. Find another babysitter. They're too involved in your life and need to just be grandparents. Talk to your husband and call him out for betraying your trust and ask him who he's married to, because it seems like he thinks his parents are part of your marriage. Tell him that you and your children are taking a time out from his parents until he fixes the problem. Call him out and tell him that he is the one who valued his parents' feelings over yours, and he can be the one to fix it, and you and your children will not be seeing his parents until he sets very firm boundaries with them and instills consequences. Also tell him that you and your children will be going to visit with your family, and he will be spending that time making sure that his parents don't end up running into you while you are with your family. If it were me, I'd tell him he better hope that you don't see them during the visit, because if you do, it is over. That's just what I would do. He's smothering you with his parents. You should be able to see your own family without his parents as chaperones. So OP does update the post and says, "Hi guys, sorry for the late update. Life got busy, and I really didn't have anything exciting to update. I want to thank everyone for your advice. Most of them were helpful. We decided to go through with the vacation. It'd be unfair towards my parents, husbands, and kids to cancel. The main culprit of this fiasco is my mum. My mum is a social butterfly and she tries to include everyone. She was the one who invited my in-laws to come. Her reason was that my in-laws don't have any friends or social circle, and that she wanted them to enjoy a vacation too. Although her reason is sweet, my husband, father, and sister were disappointed with her actions. My husband because he wanted a vacation for us. He wanted a bond as a family. With his parents there, he has to take care of everything for them. My father because he now has to entertain my in-laws, and he's excited to spend time with his grandkids because he doesn't see them often. My sister because she's tired of my mother always inviting people while it was supposed to be a small family thing. My mum once invited relatives to my sister's kid's birthday party while she wanted to have a small celebration. So yeah, better talk with my mum to explain why her actions are hurting us. My mum doesn't really understand why we're bothered. She says the more the merrier. My husband blames my mum for this whole fiasco. He told me that he didn't want his parents to join us on vacation, but my mum invited his parents without consulting with us. Now they are going and he can't tell them not to go. My husband did talk with his parents to set boundaries. He told them that we wanted 2 weeks for ourselves. They get 1 week with the kids, the rest is for us. My in-laws told us that they understand, but yeah, guess what? They've been trying to convince my husband to stay at the same hotel as them, and they are planning to follow us the last 2 weeks of the vacation. They changed their itinerary, so they'll be at the same places, without consulting us. I overheard them talking about it. My mother-in-law's exact words are, "We won't see the kids the first week, so we need to follow them for the last 2 weeks." I appreciate my in-laws, I really do. They are amazing grandparents, but I just wanted a break. Just for a few weeks. I just wanted this vacation to be for us. I see my in-laws 2 to 4 times in a week. They didn't have friends, so they spend most of their times with my kids and us. My sister said that what my mother-in-law is doing is unhealthy bonding with my kids because of mother-in-law's past trauma. She's an amazing grandmother, but she can be a little much. When you spend so much time with your in-laws, you really crave some alone time. So yeah, my mum says just to put up with it because my in-laws just want to spend time with the kids on vacation. My husband doesn't want to hurt his parents' feelings. He did set some clear boundaries, but my in-laws don't care. I've come to the realization that I'll never escape my in-laws. So people, when you find your SO, do know that if you marry him or her, you will also marry their family. And I gotta say, below this one, the majority of the comments was turning to everyone sort of sucks here. OP for not saying no themselves, the husband for not dealing with his parents, mum for inviting every bloody body to vacation. And I know dealing with family can be incredibly difficult. But your life doesn't have to be like this. Your last sentence seems to say that, this is it for the rest of my life now. But a conversation will solve this. Setting up boundaries will solve this. Everyone deserves a break to get away from things, to relax with their own family and just have a bit of, time to yourselves. You shouldn't have to explain that to anybody. And simply telling them that you need a break just as a family should be more than enough. Like I said the first time around, it's a them problem if they don't understand and you need to just do your own thing. And this is just going to continue from your in-laws, from your mum, if nothing is said about it, which will then just be your life. And that's clearly not what you want. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And our next story is one that we have covered in the past, but now has been flagged with a final update. And I'm going to cover the previous parts of the story. I'll put timestamps down in the description as always, so you can skip through parts if you've already heard them and you want to skip them, whatever. Totally up to you. But this story does contain cancer as well, so if you do want to skip it, always feel free to do so. It's from the Off My Chest subreddit from a throwaway account and says, I'm at a loss as what to do with my 54 male wife, 51 female request. My wife and I have been married since 2001 and together since 1999. She's the most intelligent, thoughtful, caring, loyal person I know. I have always thought of myself as fortunate to have met and married her. She is, even today, aesthetically beautiful, and men have told her this throughout our marriage. She has always shot them down. Earlier this year, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer stage 1, had a full hysterectomy. I was never concerned about the cancer. It was diagnosed early, dealt with quickly, and she made a full recovery. I took time off work to look after her after the surgery, and all seemed well. There were some to be expected emotional instances on her part, and although I'm not an emotional person, we dealt with them together. After a recovery, she was insistent that we start living life to the fullest and took a 10-day trip to Europe, followed by a trip to Belize. We also have a trip to the UK and Spain and Portugal later this year. I am fine with these things, building memories and crossing bucket list adventures off of her/our list. I also understand that these are a result of feeling fragile on her part. She also took up yoga, swimming, and healthy cooking classes. I was fully on board until last week. Last week she came home from work and told me she wanted a hall pass, a one-time opportunity for her to have sex with someone else besides me. She said that since her cancer diagnosis, her outlook on life has changed and she doesn't want to be handcuffed from doing things she wants to do. She explained that there is this guy at her work that she has always had some attraction to. He's leaving the company and she will never see him again, so this is the perfect opportunity to sleep with someone else. She said that I could say no, of course, but that she would be mad and disappointed at me for an indeterminate amount of time, and that it would be a confirmation of my male toxicity and insecurity. I don't consider myself to be toxic, and if not wanting your wife of 20 plus years to have sex with someone else is insecure, then I guess I am insecure. I told her that I appreciated her talking to me about this, but approval via coercion is not approval. I also said that I do not appreciate her language in describing my, as of yet, unknown reaction to this very large issue that could affect the rest of our marriage and life. I got up in the morning and she basically said that she was sorry for putting such a large decision solely on my shoulders, and that to help, she was taking the decision away from me. She booked a hotel near where her co-workers are having a party/send-off for this guy, and she would spend the night there with him and hoped that I would be here when she got back. That she would answer any questions I have about the night after it happened, but not before. She will not tell me who he is or anything about him because she knows me too well, and that I will dwell and obsess over him. And that would make it too real for me, which is pretty accurate. Her point of view is that the less I know, the better, which contradicts the offer to tell me anything I want to know after it happened. I think she knows I won't want to know/ask anything, or she simply will not tell me. Part of me thinks at least she has been honest with me and she has been through a lot since finding out she had cancer, so maybe I should just let it happen. I certainly have no concept of what she went through, so I cannot dismiss how this affected her mental state and outlook on life. Part of me wants to put my foot down and say this is not going to happen and deal with those consequences when they happen. Her BFF called me callous for even suggesting that I wouldn't let it happen, because I have no idea what she went through. I find it hard to believe that she is okay with the possibility of throwing away 20 plus years of marriage over some guy that she has had no relationship with outside of work, and that I should just call her bluff. Maybe she thinks similarly that I won't throw away the marriage because of just one encounter. I just don't know what to do. I empathize with her, and that's an instant later I am angry with her. Part of me wants to know who this guy is. What does he look like? What has he got that is so enthralling for her? Is he just a safe option? Is he married? Does his wife know? Would I be callous arsehole for saying no? What can I do besides walking away? The top comment on this one says, kinda think this is the way your marriage will be from now on. With her epiphany, she wants to relive her life and she's going to do it regardless of your feelings. I think she is being rather selfish and probably only threatens this because she thinks you are beaten down and will simply put up with it. Perhaps not the best time for trips and thrills. She wants the single life. Let us see what that means. OP says, she thinks because she will never see this guy again and that I have never met him, supposedly, that it won't really affect me or our marriage in the long term. I'm left with accepting it and never viewing her the same way again and going through a divorce at 54. Not really great options on either front. I don't know where her head is, and the bout with cancer is affecting her in ways that I couldn't possibly imagine. I don't think she believes I will leave. Around 4 days later, OP updates and says I received a ton of advice that I couldn't possibly respond to. I do appreciate the people who took time to offer advice in the comments or via PM. It has been an exhausting couple of days. I was hoping that my opposition to her plans would give her pause, but unfortunately, that did not happen. I said I am a hard no, and I'm not sure how I will feel about you if you go ahead with it. I was met once again with, this is for me, it'll be one time, what can I say that will help you deal with it? You'll get over it. We were meant to be regardless of the situation, remarks leading up to Saturday. She left Saturday, ostensibly to meet her co-workers, but in reality, fuck the guy. I asked her to text me when she was leaving for the bar, and when she did, I asked her if she was really going through with this. After her response, I'm not answering any more questions tonight, I will see you tomorrow, I blocked my wife. Then I did something either stupid or brilliant. I went to the bar where the get-together was happening. Well, not the bar, but a transit bench across the street. I waited for a long time. It was running through my mind, the leading up to this event, that I need to know who this guy was. Maybe to compare myself against him, to see what he had that I do not. It was driving me crazy not knowing who he was and what was so special about him that she would ruin a marriage for. After what seemed like an eternity, a woman that I recognized from my wife's office left the bar and got in a cab. Soon other people started filing out and a whole group of people came out and people were hugging a man and shaking his hand. I assumed that I had my guy. I didn't see my wife and had a brief thought that maybe she called it all off. I unblocked her and there were no messages. Everyone said their goodbyes and left. Dude was standing outside for a few minutes and then my wife came out. She looked around, took his hand and started walking away together. All of the emotions I went through, trepidation, sadness, anger, it was disgust that really encapsulated the event for me. This guy was short, fat and bald, all the things I cannot compete with. Ultimately, I felt like a pervert for watching from a distance. I followed until they got to the hotel and then turned around and went home. I woke up Sunday morning and put a lock on the master bedroom door. I moved her things to the spare room and left a note asking her to find other accommodations as quickly as possible. I visited another friend who was a lawyer and he gave me some sage advice and a couple of recommendations for divorce attorneys and made the introductions. My wife had been calling me numerous times since around 11 or so. Once blocked, the calls go to voicemail. I listened to the first couple but found nothing but some satisfaction when she couldn't get through to me and she was obviously becoming concerned. I didn't want to go home, but I left in such a hurry that I didn't plan an overnight properly. I got home around 9 and as per my buddy's advice I recorded the interaction. I was halfway up the stairs when she came up from the family room asking what was going on, Could we talk? I just answered with, I'm not interested in discussing this tonight, and went to bed. After not getting a response from me through the door, she left me alone. I kind of feel like a child for not talking to her and shutting the door on her, but I just couldn't look at her. Monday I got up and ready for work. She was waiting for me and asked if we could discuss getting back to normal. I said, you've been doing all the talking for both of us for the last week. Why don't you continue? And left for work. I have an appointment with the attorneys my friend recommended for this week. Opie then posted a rant which had potential waywards in the BFF and said the BFF does not have your best interests in mind. The BFF wants to validate their bad choices by encouraging you to make the same ones. The BFF lives for the drama they help create. The BFF is titillated by the details. The BFF cultivates misery. The BFF is a narcissist who can't help themselves, so if the statement, just go for it, you deserve it, he doesn't appreciate you, he doesn't respect you, and in my case, you face your own mortality and you shouldn't let anyone hold you back from doing the things that make you happy. Maybe realize that you should talk with your significant other, explain what you are feeling. You owe it to them to discuss the way you are feeling about yourself, your partner, and your marriage. Opie left some comments below that and said, yeah, once the dust has settled, I realized I was desperate to hold on to something that no longer existed. I've initiated divorce proceedings. She has regret, not remorse. Of course, those are different things with different meanings. She regrets what has happened because her life is upside down now. Someone in private messages asked if her cancer could be back and spread to her brain, which I don't know if it has actually happened or not, but I doubt it would make any difference to me at this point. I just don't see her the same way anymore. I told all of her friends' husbands about how they enabled this behavior, and the fallout is interesting. I said that maybe when they are covering for one another, that maybe my wife was just the next link in the chain. It's got them going through their wives' phones. The couple found inappropriate sexting. All husbands have made their wives cut off my wife and each other. Someone asks, was BFF one of those sexting? And Opie says, of course. The BFF's husband says that she was definitely an emotional affair and probably a physical affair as well. He is still digging. Opie's next update says, my lawyer wasn't available for a few days, so I was faced with the reality of having to live with my wife in the interim. I really didn't want to go home and have any discussion, let alone a discussion about our relationship. When I did get home, I was basically ambushed by her friends and my mother-in-law. Instead of taking the remorseful approach, they decided that a full court press was what the situation warranted, and I was basically berated by them. The BFF was definitely the ringleader, but all of them decided to say such things as, she's been going through a lot. You don't know what she's been going through. You have no idea what it is like to face something like this. This was a one-time thing. At least she told you. She could have hidden it from you. She will never see the guy again. And my favorite, you're an arsehole for what you've been putting her through these last couple of days. I listened with a dumbass smirk on my face, and when there was a lull in their fury, I asked if they were all done now. Then I asked my wife if there was anyone in her circle of friends or anyone else that she forgot to tell about this. I quietly informed all of them that I was going to sit down with their husbands and tell them about how they verbally abusing me, shaming me, and trying to coerce me into staying with a cheater. After I told them to leave, I said that I had no say in the entire event, and so they have no say in whether I stay or not. My soon-to-be ex-wife sort of apologized. She said she regretted the entire thing. I said there is a difference between regret and remorse. You regret what happened because of the cause and effect. You have regret because your life will never be the same. Our relationship will never be the same because you were wholly and willfully unconcerned about me and what I wanted. She asked if I had any questions that she would answer them now, no matter how disturbing. I said the one question I do have is why? Not necessarily why this guy, why this low-end, unattractive, unfit guy, but why someone else in the first place? She said that the cancer scared her to the core. She felt like she was rushing towards mortality and stepping out of the tunnel was appealing. She said that after all this time of being a wife and a mother and worrying about family, this was something just for her, an escape. The guy was just someone who was interested in her for a long time. She knew he wouldn't say no and was completely opposite to me. I said if I was going to risk my marriage, the woman would have to be a serious upgrade from you. I told her that I saw you and him coming out of the bar that night. I watched you walk away from the bar hand in hand towards the hotel. I said that you looked too familiar with each other and asked if there was something going on before all this. She said no, but who knows if that's the truth or not. I said that after all our years together, your lack of respect for me was astonishing. I finished by saying that I would never be able to look at myself in the mirror again if I condoned that level of disrespect and stayed with you. I said I hope we can go our separate ways amicably and that I have an appointment with a lawyer later in the week. I again asked her to find some other accommodations and she simply said, I'm not going anywhere. We are not getting a divorce. I'll give you all the time you need to do whatever you need to recover from this. We will get past this. She has asked me to go to marriage counseling, which I refused. Why would I go to counseling? I did nothing to warrant needing a therapist's advice. I had her served and gave her notice to vacate. The house is my premarital asset. She has moved in with her mum, but I find her constantly coming by to see if I need anything or making suggestions like, what if we had an open relationship only on your side or threesomes? Which seemed kind of desperate and pathetic. Rebuffing her constantly and telling her that she has to call to ask permission before coming by, and finally seems to get through to her that there will be no us going forward. She has said that she will drag the divorce out for as long as possible, but so far has been compliant. The worst part of all this is telling my daughter that we are getting a divorce and why, followed closely by her begging me to give her mum another chance. I'm not sure I would have been afforded the same consideration if I was the one who was cheating. Hope he provides some more information below that. On his daughter he says, I think it was just a gut reaction. In the weeks that have passed, and the more she understands what has happened, the more irritated she is becoming with her mum. On his wife, I loved my wife. I and others found her to be stunning. She looks like Linda Carter. Now knowing that she has a fared down so low makes her a non-entity that I could never look at the same way again. No amount of counseling is going to change the way I see her. Someone suggests something had to transpire prior to the hotel excursion. There's no way she decided in a matter of a few days to pick up and cheat with the affair partner. Opie says getting sex is easier for women. Maybe they were involved in an emotional affair before, and this was a culmination. I don't really know, nor do I care, unless it benefits me during the divorce. From what I know, all of her friends have cut her off. They're trying like hell to save their own marriages, that they are turning on each other. Someone asks, after vacating your house, is she feeling any remorse, or is she still thinking you need to get over it as of today? Going no contact with her should be easy since your daughter is an adult. What desperate measures has she taken that you haven't mentioned in your post and comments? Opie says she was stoic and held her position right up until she was served. Then she became visibly upset and resorted to begging, pleading, and bargaining. Someone else said, really? No tears? No emotional meltdown? I'm sorry that happened to you. How can she not see what she has done to you? The whole way this went is so surreal from start to finish. It's like she has a manic or hypomanic episode. You're doing the right thing by divorcing her. Sorry, but there is no love in her anymore. You, sir, have not lost your self-respect and have made the right choice. Take care of yourself. Opie said plenty of tears, begging and bargaining after the fact, but that may be just optics. Maybe she fell out of love and is now regretting her new station in life. She's an attractive woman. She'd have plenty of men willing to date her, but I won't be one of them. Someone says, wow, amazing poker face. She really thought she owned you. Opie says she was confident, overly so. Another says, if you ever feel the need to go nuclear, you could reveal the affair to her co-workers. I bet that would be a disaster. Opie says, I want her employed so I don't have to pay maintenance, even if it was while she was between jobs. There is a woman at her work who has always looked at me in an inviting way. So maybe I'll try to date her after this is over. That would be interesting on a couple of levels. And OP updates again and says, there is not much to report. We're in the process of getting a divorce. However, where we live, we must be legally separated for 1 year. My soon-to-be ex-wife has said that she will give me whatever I want in the divorce if I agree to attend marriage counseling, but I am not interested. There was a bit of back and forth while we worked out what separation looks like in everyday life from this point forward. As a result, we've only just agreed to the confines of the legal separation. So as we move towards defining the divorce language, maybe my stance may change. The house was a premarital asset, so she has no claim to it. The only things she could go after are my pension, vehicles, and vacation property. But I would counter that she has lived rent-free for 20 plus years, and has her own money plus inheritance from her father. I may have offer her a top-up in retirement, as she was a stay-at-home mum while our daughter was young. But that would be the most at this point. I received a lot of messages about her friend group and my daughter. I will clear up misconceptions now. My daughter isn't taking her mother's side. She has always been a mama's girl, but she is very unhappy with her mum right now. Her initial reaction was just shock and held out hope that we would work through any issues and stay together. Now she accepts that it's not going to happen, and she's been limiting her interactions with her. But at the end of the day, she's still her mum. The friend group husbands were upset at the level of complicity of their wives in aiding and abetting the contact and cheating, and made them cut off my wife. But that seems to have been forgotten at this point. The BFF was the ringleader and seems to have taken a perverse pleasure in actively creating scenarios where they would be in contact. At the very least encouraging to the point of causing her husband to question her motives. It turns out she didn't like me at all, and this was her way of sticking it to me. I guess she wins. The BFF's husband said that there were some sexting in his wife's messages, but said he is dealing with it. We did meet up with him being apologetic for his wife's complicity, but it is not his fault and just wants to move on. I've decided not to date anyone for a while. I will not be getting married ever again. So that's it. I doubt I will post again unless she wins the lottery, and I find it in my heart to forgive her. Ah, my word, I remember reading this the first time around and just the attitude of the wife, like, said, I want to sleep with someone else. He said absolutely not. And then she was like, well, I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. And then is shocked when he's serving her divorce papers. And then after all that, and he says like he wants her out the house, and she's like, I'm not leaving. We're not getting a divorce. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from Misty Moonbeam, who says, saw sexually explicit texts on husband's phone. Hi, I'm posting here because I don't know what else to do. I'm pretty sure my husband is cheating on me. He won't admit to it, but I don't think I'm imagining anything. He left his phone near me on the arm of the couch, and I saw some messages pop up from a person with a woman's name. A woman I've never heard of, and the messages were not innocent whatsoever. He seemingly realized he had left the phone there and quickly came back from the other room and grabbed it. I was nursing our daughter and our other children were nearby. Inside, I was exploding. All I could do was give him the dirtiest look, and he was like, what? I told him, you know what? He said I was paranoid. So I stopped talking to him for the rest of the evening. Once the kids were in bed and we went into our bedroom, and I closed the door and asked him what in the fuck those messages were about. He said he didn't know what I was talking about. I told him not to treat me like an idiot. I saw messages from a woman who clearly was not me talking about his cock. That's the word she used. Why would any other woman be using that word innocently in a text message to my husband? I asked to see his phone. Normally, I'm not like that, but I had to see the messages and whatever else he's hiding on his phone. Pictures, videos. He refused to let me see his phone. I told him that tells me all I need to know then. He said no, he's just not going to play this game with me. I'm now sleeping in another room for the night. For reference, I'm 35 and he's 42. We've been married for 8 years and we have 4 kids, 4 girls. Our oldest is 6 and our youngest is almost a year. I'm deeply in love with him. He seemed to be deeply in love with me. I feel as giddy and as excited to be with him now as I did when we first met. I feel safe with him, and this is the man I've always dreamed of. Despite being together for 10 years, I can't keep my hands off him, and he is the same with me. I'm attracted to him in every way. He's a great dad, totally engaged and involved, loving, patient, protective, fun. He's into all of this masculine stuff, but wow, he's the best girl dad, and is truly their hero in their eyes. He didn't know if he'd ever decided to pull the trigger on having a kid, but he says when he met me, that changed and we decided to have one and see how it went. We enjoyed the experience so much we did it 3 more times. Despite saying we were done at 4, we've been talking about maybe 1 more. He has a job he's very committed to, a very good job that supports our family. I had a full-time career as well, but I became a stay-at-home mum when our 3rd baby was born. His job requires travel several times a year, sometimes for extended times. I've had a few friends ask if I ever worried about the time apart and what he was getting up to. I never worried. He's in constant communication with me, calls home to speak to our kids every night, and nothing ever seemed odd. The one thing that I now feel was weird is there'd be an unfamiliar smell in his suitcase sometimes, sort of perfumed. The only thing I can figure is that he's been cheating on me when he's out of town. I don't see when he'd be doing it at other times. I don't know what to do now. He's probably deleting everything that was on his phone. I feel dizzy. I want to know every single detail about whatever it is he's been doing. I don't want to feel like an idiot that will just sit at home and remain the fool. This is my worst nightmare come true. I trusted him 110%. And we're starting the comments with Smushy Boo, who says a family member has this happened recently. Her husband constantly on the phone and being cagey with it. She just outright said, "If you're not showing me the contents of your phone is more important than our marriage, you may as well just leave." He never did show her the contents on his phone, and they aren't together anymore. She had a lot going on in her life at the time and just said she didn't have the energy to deal with lies and secretiveness from her supposed life partner. She's a badass, and I hope you get your answers. Serial Killer says start your escape plan. Secure all important documents, passports and health cards. Stock up on Walmart and gas gift cards when you go grocery shopping every trip to build yourself something to fall back on. Take note of all finances so he doesn't drain accounts. Make sure you know all the financial data to protect yourself and kids. Eliwit says you saw what you saw and he had no interest in showing you what else was on there. He's not being trustworthy or faithful, and it doesn't sound like you're going to get him to tell you the truth. Is this behavior that you find acceptable in a partner? If not, I'll be thinking about consequences and at minimum kicking him out of the house. OP leaves their own comment in the same post as well and says, I should have known better. I knew my husband did his fair share of sleeping around before we were married, when he was in his 20s and early 30s. He was even engaged once before we met, and he admitted to me that the relationship fell apart because they both cheated on each other, but they were young and dumb, in his words. He seemed to be done with all of that when we met. He was forthcoming about it, didn't seem proud of some of the stuff he had done, and seemed mature and like he wasn't interested in sleeping around anymore. People that have known him for a long time, long before I ever met him, would make comments about how I tamed him. Maybe I should have been more cautious given this information, but he never gave me any reason to believe that he was interested in any of that anymore. He's never given any indication that he's not interested in me, even through 4 pregnancies in 7 years. If anything, it felt like he just loved me more and more. I felt like our loves were just growing and becoming deeper, and I never felt neglected by him in any way, so I never suspected anything could be going on. I still don't know exactly what's going on, and it's driving me crazy. I just know that I didn't imagine those texts. Based on what was said, it had to have been a physical thing. When somebody is saying they miss your cock, what else could they mean? So OP does update the post, and they said, I recently posted about seeing sexually explicit texts on my husband's phone. That's all I saw before he snatched the phone from where it was sitting. I wasn't going through his phone or snooping, it was just laying on the arm of the couch, and I glanced over when I saw messages pop up. I definitely did not expect to see anything like that. He tried to tell me I was being paranoid, and nothing was going on. Believe me, I tried desperately to think of any innocent reason why I would have seen those texts pop up on his phone. It doesn't take long to realize there is no innocent explanation. Luckily, I followed some advice here and logged into his forgotten iPad. He rarely ever uses it. I saw the text that I had seen flash on his screen, and a lot more than just that. It seems like after she sent him a message about 2 months ago, he told her to not contact him again. He could have blocked her if he was serious about it, right? Eventually, he started talking to her, and their conversations have been going on pretty regularly since then, and they're almost entirely sexually explicit conversations. Where on earth did this lady come from? I doubt she randomly texted my husband's number by chance. I confronted him with undeniable proof that I'd seen messages, and he eventually admitted it's a woman he met while on a business trip, and that they were only together a few times, but then she started texting him. He slipped and said, normally I don't give them my... Then he realized what he was saying. Admitted to me that normally he doesn't give random women he hooks up with his phone number. He didn't say the full thing, but that's what he was about to say. He was flustered. He couldn't believe I was smart enough to look at the iPad, and that he hadn't thought about that. He still wouldn't admit that there's been anyone more than this one woman. He says he's not in love with her. There's no feelings. It's just been flirting and sexting, and he got carried away. I can't just pack my bags and leave. I have 4 little kids, so I told him to leave, at least for now. I'm disgusted. He begged to stay and to fix things, but I refused to talk to him. He's staying at a hotel right now. I almost can't function. I want to smash all of his belongings. 1 second I'm enraged, and the next I'm sad and blaming myself. I know this sounds pathetic, but I don't want to be a single mum of 4 kids under 7. I don't want to be married to him right now either. And obviously the comments picked up on him slipping up his words there and saying, you know, this probably isn't the first affair partner. You need to get STD checks, and you need to get your ducks in a row. Get yourself a lawyer and get this sorted while you can. And, you know, It's got to be incredibly hard to deal with, to find that out, and for your children as well, to think about what they're going to go through in the upcoming days, months, years, possibly. And that's got to be a scary thought, isn't it? Having 4 children and being on your own to raise them. And I can only wish, OP, whatever comes your way, and I can only imagine how overwhelming it must feel right now. I wish you the very, very best in whatever path you take. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? How would you deal with it if it was you? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from Am I the Arsehole subreddit from Valleys, who says, would I be the arsehole for continuing to wear a swimsuit in a friend's hot tub? I'm currently spending the week visiting a couple that I've been friends with for many years now. I get on really well with both of them, and it's nice to catch up and spend some time in their part of the country. They have a nice house and recently added a private hot tub area at the back and said I was welcome to use it. It's got a small sauna, a hot tub, and an outdoor shower. It's all enclosed for privacy. They're fairly open about the fact that they use it naked. I know they've visited European spas where swimwear isn't allowed and stuff. They're not naturists, but they just prefer to not wear anything in spas. They've got some little jokey signs up in the spa area about being nude, and another about etiquette, like showering before getting in the hot tub and sitting on a towel in the sauna, etc. But one of the etiquette rules said that swimwear was not allowed, and I ignored that. I get that's their thing, but it's not something I wanted to do, so I wore my swimsuit. I left it to dry with the towels, which they noticed, and asked if I'd worn it. I told them that I had, and they told me that it wasn't appropriate because they don't allow swimwear. For me, it just felt weird to get naked because it's just a preference, and anyway, no one was around when I used it, so I didn't feel the need to follow that particular rule. I followed all the others. I said I just don't want to be out there naked and have someone come along and see me. I said I'd do it if they promise not to also use it while I am, or I don't mind them being naked, but I'd rather have something on. They both said it's not a big deal to be naked in a spa, and that if I used it when they are out or working, then it's unlikely either of them will come out at the same time as me, but they won't promise to give me private use. They are saying as it's their house I should respect their rules and use it without my swimsuit, but they're basically saying I can't object if they come and join me while I'm naked. It wasn't a super heated argument, just a debate about the principle. They told me I shouldn't use it if I'm not willing to do so nude, and accept that they may also want to use it at the same time. Would I be the arsehole if I ignore them and just keep wearing my swimsuit when I use it? So people were asking OP questions, and OP replied with relevant information. So someone said, where are they from? OP says she is from the Netherlands and this is happening in Wales in the UK. I said I'd be more comfortable if they let me use it privately at first, but she wouldn't agree to that if it was when they usually use it. I asked if I can wear a swimsuit with them at first, and she didn't agree to that either. Just said I could practice during the day while they're out, which seems rude. Someone says, could it be for health and safety reasons? Ultimately, you're not entitled to use their spa, especially if you don't follow their rules. OP says this is a fair point, and others have mentioned that there is more to it than just a cultural preference. I don't want to be the arsehole here, and in fairness, I've had to use it myself the last 2 times I've used it when they weren't home. So I'll try it now without a swimsuit, and later I'll speak to them when they are home about why they have the rule. We didn't speak too much about why the first time, and more about the logistics of it. Now, I'm not sure if this is just a cultural thing. I know in the UK, you can go in a spa in your swimsuit, but I know from personal experience when the last company that I was with, we was going to Germany for our Christmas work outing, where folks from China, the folks from the US, and us, we all met in Frankfurt in Germany. We was going to the Christmas markets and was going to spend some time together, and there was talk about visiting like a spa in Germany. And I already had a bit of an inkling that it's sort of like a faux pas to wear swimsuits, and it's even, against the rules in some spas to wear a swimsuit. And I just thought, nah, that's not for me, especially with work colleagues. There's no way you're going to catch me butt bollock naked. And I got nothing against it. Absolutely fair play to you. If you enjoy going to a spa and, naked, and you don't mind being naked and all that kind of stuff, that's more power to you, But you ain't going to catch me in the nip in a spa, no chance. But East Practice says, if I understand correctly, some people don't want swimsuits in their hot tubs because of water quality. Contaminants from your suit affect the water. Sunscreen, lotions, laundry soap, and anything from wherever you use it last gets in the water and causes them headaches. If that is the situation, then yes, you're the arsehole. I completely understand your discomfort and reasoning, but the easier answer is just don't use their hot tub. SFX says, you're the arsehole. Everyone calling these people creepy need to chill. This is a thing, and they are not just trying to get you naked. At any Korean spa, for instance, it is common courtesy to rinse off before doing anything, and you cannot under any circumstances enter any of the hot tubs or cold plunge pools, saunas, etc. wearing a swimsuit or anything else. The staff will stop you. This is the case at many other gender-segregated spas as well. It's not just a cultural norm for Koreans. For reasons others have mentioned, it is less sanitary to wear clothing in hot tubs and pools, and unless you use a lot more chemicals, which is considered by some people to be unpleasant and less healthy. It's not your fault you're not accustomed to it, and you're not obligated to do it, but they're not being crazy or unreasonable. Ethan says, not the arsehole, I get their house, their rules, but I also think someone being more cautious is fine. Basically, go to the level of the first person's discomfort. They shouldn't insist you be naked. That is weird and invasive, particularly in the US if that's where you are. There's no hygiene reason I know of where swimsuits would cause a problem. Happy to be enlightened if I'm wrong, of course. I do think that if you wanted to insist other people not be naked, you can't. You can opt not to join them, of course, but if the general attitude at the host place is nudity and you're not comfortable with that, that's on you to manage, but they don't get to insist you undress. Susie Q says, I wouldn't bother with the Am I the Arsehole post at all. I'd be leaving. There is no health or equipment maintenance reason to not wear a swimsuit. This is them being weird and pretentious, trying to emulate some European vibe that doesn't always align with social norms in other places. They don't get to demand nudity from you, not the arsehole. So OP first updates with a small update and says, I did use the spa again today when they were both at work but kept my swimsuit on. My friends are definitely not sexual predators, and it's kind of wild how many people jumped to that conclusion. But so many people said check for cameras, and I thought, you never know. Had a good look around and there's nothing, and pretty much no way to see into the spa either, so I wanted to clear that up. They came home from work and didn't say anything about it, and I didn't leave my suit out to dry, so they clearly have no idea I used it again while wearing it. She is Dutch, but she hasn't lived there in a while, so I was being a bit more stubborn because we're not in the Netherlands, and kinda wanted to make a point about the swimsuit, but I've seen plenty of comments about it being unhygienic and unsafe, which I hadn't considered before. I think perhaps on reflection I was being a bit defensive and stubborn. It's just a different culture. They're great people, and I wouldn't want to ruin a friendship, so we'll speak to them tomorrow. 6 days later, OP updates again and says the post got way more attention than I was expecting, and some of the comments are wild, so I wanted to put an update to say how the rest of the week went. Firstly, they weren't trying to do anything sexual and there were no cameras. Before anyone asks, yes, I did check for the sake of being able to say that I have. There was nothing in my room, the bathroom, or outside by the spa. A Redditor sent me an article about it and a link to an app for detecting them, so I'm as sure as I can be that the place wasn't bugged. I, 28 female, have known them, 26 female, 29 male, for 7 years. She's from the Netherlands originally, and he used to live there, but we are currently in Wales. I've stayed with them before, but the spa is new since my last visit. As some of you have stated, I would be the arsehole if I kept using it and ignored their rules, so I tried it sans swimsuit while they were out at work, and that went fine. Obviously felt odd at first, but nothing too scary. I can see the appeal and reasons for going without. I spoke to 26 female that evening and we sat down so I could ask why they have the nudity rule besides it not being a big deal to them. Not mentioning Reddit thanks to the hundreds of accusations against their character on here. She was very understanding and I think we communicated a lot better than the first time it was discussed. She explained that the main reason they chose to spend money on it was so they could have somewhere here that they could use without swimwear. I understand that it isn't for everybody, but they brought it for them, not for anyone else. She said people here have plenty of options if they want to visit a spa in swimwear, and basically I don't have to use their stuff if I don't want to be naked. They had mainly 2 issues. 1. She felt it was rude the way I'd asked before to use it whenever I wanted, and that they would have to work around my schedule, which is apparently how I made it sound. I did apologize for the way I came across. 2.
She also made a point that it was not appropriate that I suggested I stayed clothed while her husband was naked in there. I said it caught me off guard as I wasn't expecting it to apply to guests. I just assumed it was that they wanted to be nude, but wouldn't expect me to be also. Apparently the spas they use in Netherlands require that everybody be naked to use the saunas and pools, etc. Even the changing rooms are mixed gender and you just wear a dressing gown in the restaurant. Most will have a couple of swimwear days where the opposite applies and swimwear is mandatory. So it's an all or nothing thing, which makes it fair for everyone. They just objected to me coming in with them, with a swimsuit on. She said it's better for you and the equipment to be naked, especially more hygienic and easier to maintain for them. She explained how important it is to use the shower before and when moving between the hot tub and sauna, as well as to dry off and sit on a towel when in the sauna. Just lots of info that I didn't really have any idea of before. They were happy to agree times that I could use it alone, but had assumed I understood that during the day when they were out was the time that they had suggested so I could have privacy. She said if I want to use it in the evenings that I could just check with them and agree separate times so no one intrudes on each other, and that they'd never have barged in without checking that I was either not there or that I was covered up if they thought I was using it nude. I then asked whether I could have worn one of my swimsuits if it was washed appropriately so as not to cause issues for them cleaning the hot tub, and she said that would be fine if I really didn't want to be naked. She didn't recommend wearing a swimsuit in the sauna but said I could go in wrapped in a towel if I wanted to be covered up. She said she didn't mind me joining her while she used it naked, but that I should just ask 29 male if he minded that because she would find it weird if one of his male friends wanted to come in when she was naked but insisted on being dressed. She suggested that they could put some swimwear in the wash so we can all use it together before I leave, if I really wasn't comfortable with the nudity, which was kind of her. I owned up to using it again wearing my swimsuit and we laughed it off. She just didn't get why I cared because they weren't even home. I did then say I tried again without and wouldn't mind trying it again with her. She and I went in together without swimsuits and she just kind of reassured me that I don't need to be self-conscious or anything and to take my time. And on the last night I built up the courage to go in with both of them. It was completely platonic before anyone asks. Scary at first but also exhilarating. I was definitely making a big effort to maintain eye contact, but 29 male was very respectful and I felt at ease with them in the end. I didn't forget that I was naked or anything, but after a little while I was just okay with it, which I wasn't expecting to happen so fast. So no big drama in the end, and while the thought of nudity in front of others still makes me feel uncomfortable, I'm very glad that I gave this a go. Thanks to everyone who offered their advice and support to this first time nude spa goer. And I think the comments after this one were a little bit mixed up, like some people still latching onto the insistence of, be naked or nothing. Other people saying that communication wins the day here. But what do you guys make of this situation? What would you do if it was you? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from Throwaway account that was titled, "My late husband had a son he never told me about. Now my daughter wants to know her brother." And before we do get into this story, I do want to give you some warnings. It contains talk of death, bullying, childhood trauma, child neglect, and child abandonment. So if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. My life was turned upside down last month when I was informed of my husband's death in a work-related accident. This would of course be hard enough to cope with, but shortly after, before the funeral, a young man came to my house, claiming to be my late husband's son. My husband didn't speak a word about him to me. He claimed to have not known about me or either of my daughters, 12 and 8, until he was notified by my husband's death and found the obituary in the online version of our local paper. The young man was 18 and must have been born before I met my husband. He also claimed his own mother died years ago and was never to his memory in a relationship with my husband. So the boy's existence is not proof of infidelity on my husband's part. However, I still feel just as betrayed. My husband never breathed a word of him to me. This boy lives in the UK where my husband sometimes worked. I lived in the US and he travelled a lot in his line of work, and I can't help but wonder how many other secret children did he have? How many times did my husband visit this boy and never told me about it? What else was he not telling me? This boy had pictures with himself and my husband at various ages. He says he was brought up at a boarding school and my husband visited him sometimes. Though I very much want to, have no reason to doubt his story. The boy asked to come to the funeral.
I want to say no, but I feel like I have no right. My kids see me talking to this stranger and poke their heads in asking what's going on. Before I can stop him, the boy introduces himself to them as their half-brother. Now, not only do I have to figure out how to cope with all this information myself, but I also have to find some way to explain it to my children. My 8-year-old doesn't seem to get the full implications of her father keeping this kind of secret from us all, but my 12-year-old is clearly upset, although she won't talk about it with me. At the funeral, the boy kind of lurked in the corner, but when lunch was served afterwards, he approached both of my girls and was playing games like tag with my 8-year-old and some of her friends, who joined in. I didn't think this was appropriate, and when I told him so, he apologized and said he did it to raise her spirits. That's what people did for him when his mother died, to cheer him up. Something about his answer irked me, and I got the impression he was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for him and using my children to do it. My mum and my sister came over to help me after I got the news about my husband. Of course, I talked to them about what was going on, and they were shocked. My mum brought up the point that the boy might be after money. All of our important assets were in both of our names, and I'm the only beneficiary of his life insurance policy. But I was not sure what could happen if he tried to sue. I asked the boy frankly if money is what he was after, and he said, "No, I couldn't take any of your money. You have kids to take care of." It irked me the way he said that, as though I was offering money, and he was trying to show how good he was by turning it down. It felt as though he expected me to give it to him anyway. I asked the boy what he wanted, and he said he wanted to get to know my children because they are his sisters. In my opinion, they might be his sisters, but he's a stranger to them regardless of biological relation. Apparently, at the funeral, he told my 8-year-old he was going to ask me if he could take my girls to the aquarium, and so that got our hopes up about it before I could even make a decision. I said yes, only if my mum or sister went with them, because I wasn't about to let my girls go with a strange man no matter what. Over the next week, he also took my girls to the park, ice cream place in the lake, with my sister as a chaperone every time. I agreed to this, and it was helpful because it gave me a chance to break down and cry to my mum without the girls around. When he left and my 8-year-old hugged him and told him not to go, and he said, "I promise I'll come visit again," I stepped in and said, "No, I think it'd be best if you didn't come back here." He looked hurt and my 8-year-old cried, but I was sick of him promising things without getting approval. She thinks it's a cool mystery like from a TV show that she had a secret brother, and she doesn't realize how disturbing it is that her father hid his existence. My sister asked me later why I told him not to come back, and I told her I think the whole thing is weird. I don't know this boy or his real intentions. He could be some kind of weirdo trying to get my girls alone. My sister says I judged without ever getting to know him. He seems like a very sweet young man. He grew up mostly without a family, and he could have been jealous that my girls got all his father's attention, but instead he wanted to connect with them. My opinion is that even if those are his intentions and he's totally innocent, I still don't want him around my home or my girls. To me, he is just proof that my husband lied to me for years, and it makes me sick to look at him. My girls don't need this drama either. Even my 8-year-old is going to be traumatized once she is old enough to realize how much her dad was hiding. Me and my girls don't owe him anything. My sis says that I don't have to want him in my life, but I don't have the right to deny the girls their brother. She pointed out social workers do everything they can to avoid separating siblings because of the trauma. I said it's not the same thing because my girls have only known this brother for a week. My sister said it's also important because my girl's brother is the only person they know of their culture. My husband was like 1/8 Hawaiian, the rest white and Asian. And so the girls and their brother are like 1/16th, and the boy appears to be white, and my daughters and I are black. But the boy was raised in the UK, and he isn't part of Hawaiian culture, and honestly I think culture is something natural and not something to force because of your genetics. My girls don't live in Hawaii, they live in Oregon, so that is their culture, not black culture or Hawaiian culture. I don't force myself or my girls to participate in African culture just because of our genetics. I thought my 8-year-old would get over her brother, and she did go several weeks without asking about him, but yesterday she asked about him again. I feel bad about ever allowing him to go anywhere together and bond. I wish I'd handled the whole thing differently, and now I don't know how to explain the situation to my kids. My 12-year-old hasn't asked about her brother, but she has been extremely closed off since her father's death, and I don't know how this issue might be complicating what she's feeling. I just need outside opinions to know what to do about this. Now, of course, I don't think OP's the arsehole for wanting to protect their children, for being worried that a stranger has stepped into their life and, is saying, I'll take you to places and all this kind of thing. I can understand why you'd be worried about that. But another part of me is absolutely heartbroken for this boy at the same time. He has no family now. When he found out that those sisters are all he has left, I can't imagine what he must have felt in that moment. And then I wonder about, as the kids get older, are they going to start asking about this brother? And what will they say when you said you've turned him away? That could cause some resentment as well. Once they start to understand the situation and what happened with your husband and the husband hiding him from your side of the family, etc. And of course, there could be some wild twist that's going to come up and completely throw this story out, as, Reddit sometimes does. He sounds like a nice guy who's trying to get to know his sisters, and as he's had no family in the past, which again, I know is not easy for OP. They're grieving. There's a lot going on here. So to have a new person come into your life with all this backstory as well is gonna totally throw you out. I get it. And I get that he's overstepping some boundaries, etc. And I just kind of think, is there a way to talk to this guy, introduce him in a healthy way, maybe set up these boundaries, maybe get your children into therapy with you and talk about what's been going on, find out their thoughts and feelings on the matter. I know they're young, but they still have their thoughts and feelings. But there was a few comments calling OP an a-hole, saying, she needed to allow her daughters to see their brother, and some people saying, why haven't you got a DNA test on this? And OP said, I thought about maybe asking the boy about a DNA test, but I don't know what it would achieve. I don't want him in my life or my daughter's life either way, and even if the DNA test came back negative, it would only raise more questions. I don't know if it'd open up any legal troubles where now I owe the boy money from my husband's estate if it comes up positive. There was a comment going down a different line thinking about he might be lying and trying to scam OP, which said, I'm going with not the arsehole. Call me a skeptic, but get a DNA test first. Something about this entire situation sounds fishy. Wouldn't even have let my kids hang out with him. The way he phrases his answers does sound manipulative. What people did for him when his mum died. He didn't need to convey this information to you during your husband's funeral, but he did. The way he phrases it sounds like he's trying to make you feel bad or trying to establish boundaries. And yes, it sounds like he's trying to guilt trip and gaslight you, making you feel like you are crazy and paranoid. Further, he didn't outright reject your money. He phrased it yet again in a way that he's fishing for a longer haul. He could have easily said, no, I don't want your money, but instead he said, no, I couldn't take any of your money. See the difference? And the moment you let him into your and your kids' lives, he's been persistently around. Offering to take your kids out without you or any adults being present indicates a possibility he's manipulating your young child to get what he wants. The appropriate approach would have been to ask you, as the parent is fine with him taking your kids out. He has now heavily inserted himself in you and your kids' lives, all through your children. You need to start asking questions. Alarm bells are ringing in my head. OP did reply to those posts talking about it being a scam and said, well, the comments alerting me to how this might be a scam attempt have opened my eyes. I didn't want to introduce this stranger to my kids, but when he showed up to deliver such shocking news, my children came in and asked what was going on. He introduced himself before I think about how to tell my children. He asked if he could show up to the funeral, and I felt like I couldn't say no to that, but then used it as an in with my children. He offered to them behind my back to take them somewhere, so then I felt like I would be the bad guy if I said no. It rubbed me the wrong way, but I brushed it off. I was in a vulnerable state, not thinking clearly, and he took advantage of that. I should have trusted in my instinct from the beginning. The idea that there could be scammers that prey on grieving families is just horrible, and I had no idea of such a thing. I've contacted my lawyer to figure out how to establish if there is any truth in his story and what my legal obligations are to the boy. I'm going to have a long talk with my sister to see if during their outings he had done any kind of prying that might have led him learning information about my family that he could use somehow. I'm already in the process of getting therapy for my children and myself. Edit 2. People have been saying a lot of nasty things about me, and I don't think I'm going to get much more productive input on this. So this is going to be my last post on the topic. It's not. I considered taking the post down, but I decided to leave it up so people can be aware that scammers operate like this. That they can be so good at what they do that even hundreds of third-party outsiders will take the scammer's side. In hindsight, I can't believe I didn't see it, and I cannot believe I let such a person step foot into my home or even speak to my children. Apparently the goal was not to ask for money right away. It was to get close to me and my children and ask me for money later for a fake emergency. Other commenters elaborated on how it works. If my daughter asked me about her brother again, I'll have to tell her she was tricked. I don't want to do that to her unless I'm completely sure. So I most likely will be asking the boy for a DNA test, birth certificate, etc. However, not until I have the chance to speak to a lawyer. Just over a month later, OP updates and says, I was wrong and I was the arsehole. My husband's son, I wasn't trying to demean him by calling him the boy, was avoiding using names, was telling the truth. My husband's name wasn't on his birth certificate, but the DNA test did show he was related to my kids. He also had more photos, cards and voicemails, tons of evidence to prove that my husband did keep regular contact with him. Apparently the son's grandparents were his legal guardians. My husband occasionally gave them cash as under-the-table child support. I did notice that husband sometimes made large withdrawals when he went overseas. He said it was because shops there don't take his card. I wanted to believe it was a scam because I thought it made more sense than husband having lied. Talking to my husband's son a bit more revealed he'd been lying to him too. Apparently he told him he was a cowboy and a pro football player. Then when son googled him, he switched to saying he was a gangster who had done prison time. Needless to say, none of that is remotely true. I can't fathom what could possess him to behave this way. Lying to me, lying to his kid, not raising his kid. I'm questioning everything husband ever told me, and I'm wondering if it was me who died, would he have abandoned our kids as well? I feel horrible for that boy. I'm in therapy and working on ways to cope and forgive husband for my own peace of mind. Just help me work out why I reacted to my husband's son the way I did. I thought he was manipulating me and my kids, but what I actually sensed was that he wanted something from me and my kids. I felt like me and my daughters were not in a place to give anything emotional or financially. So I recoiled from him, but that doesn't mean he's a threat. My kids went to a therapy as well. 12-year-old has weekly sessions, however my 8-year-old hated it, so I've pulled her out for now. Many people have shared their own stories of being separated from biorelations and the effect it had on them. I don't understand it because genes don't mean that much to me, however, I don't have to understand to respect it. I personally don't feel like I'm in a place to have any kind of relationship with my husband's son, and I don't think he wants one with me. He now appears scared of me, which I do feel bad about. I wasn't trying to hurt him or scare him, but I will allow him to visit sometime if my girls want to see him. Sis agreed to continue to supervise. As far as money goes, the lawyer advised me that there aren't many assets that son is entitled to because they were in both my and my husband's name, except for a few investment accounts that were only in my husband's name. Thankfully, not where the majority of our savings are. I know people think I'm an evil witch for caring about money, but I need it to feed, clothe, and educate my own children. Opie continued their posts in Step Parents and says, I don't feel like I really count as a step parent. I don't know if I'm in the right place for this. When I went to other subs for advice, it felt like an angry mob. I'm hoping people here might be able to relate to some of the things I'm going through. I didn't know my husband had a son until after I became a widow. His son is 18 and lives in the UK, where my husband regularly visited him without telling me. My husband apparently kept our family, myself and my 2 daughters, 13 and 18, a secret from his son as well. The son found out about us after my husband died and showed up at my door to introduce himself. I didn't handle it well at the time. I was in a fog and not prepared to process anything, let alone the fact that my husband had been hiding a secret of such magnitude from me. I let him get close to my daughters, but when he said he would come back to visit, I reacted negatively and told him not to come back. After talking things through with my mother and sister, I realized that I didn't have the right to keep my daughters from their brother if they wanted a relationship with him. I reached out to the boy to confirm his story and decide on a time to visit. It was supposed to be late next month. My sister was supposed to come out and help me and supervise all interactions between my children and their brother because I am not mentally prepared to be around him and I'm not sure I ever will be. Even though I know my feelings are irrational, I honestly want nothing to do with this boy. I know my husband's behavior is not his fault and that he is a victim too. But even just looking at his face is a reminder that my husband lied to me for our entire relationship. If I had known he had a child, I might have chosen a different life. I got pregnant in college with my oldest. He was older with a stable job and able to provide for me and my child. He made all these promises. He'd take care of me. He'd take care of our baby. He'd help me get through college. He'd help be the good father he never had. And he already had a child he wasn't raising. God. If I had known that, I might have had an abortion and walked away. I fell in love with him when he said those things, and now I feel like the person I fell in love with never even existed. I don't know if he ever loved me or our kids. I don't know if he was playing a game with us or using us to build an image. I don't know if he was faithful to me on all those overseas trips. I can't trust anything he ever told me anymore. None of this is his son's fault. He's innocent, I know that, but even remembering his existence brings up so many feelings I can't deal with. Which is why my sister said she would help supervise. She played chaperone when my husband's son was getting to know my kids. Eventually she said she'd be willing to do it again. We picked a time and she said she'd be there. Today she tells me she can't do it. Her job is understaffed and she can't get the time off work. My mum can't do it either. She has a surgery coming up and won't be able to travel. My dad will also need to be home to take care of her. I'm not going to leave my kids alone with their brother, what my sister suggested, since he is frankly still a stranger to me and to them. There might be a 99% chance he has pure intentions, but that 1% chance isn't one I'm willing to take. There are all kinds of stories out there about children being abused by trusted family members. So my only options are to cancel the visit, which my kids, especially my 8-year-old, is looking forward to. I don't want to take away one of the few things they've been able to feel happily about since my husband died, or be chaperone myself. This will also mean I need to take time off work. I can manage, but it's not ideal. I don't think I can do it. I didn't choose to be a stepmother. I'm sure the boy doesn't really want me as one either. I apparently scared him when I told him not to come back, and when we talked on Zoom. Since then he acted nervous and flinchy, like he was afraid I was about to hit him or something. I feel bad about that, as it wasn't my intention. I don't think I can do this. I feel like the meeting is a disaster waiting to happen, like it's only a matter of time before I lose my temper and ruin the meeting that my kids have been looking forward to. I just have this feeling of dread. I don't know if anyone can help. Maybe it's a long shot. I have therapy on Tuesday and I hope it'll help me sort things out. I just feel like I can't do this. It's humiliating to even share this problem with anyone. And even if I try to talk things out with one of the few people I do trust, it's always think about your kids. Think about your husband's son. Put yourself in their shoes. People even show more sympathy for my husband than me. Maybe it was a coping mechanism for his childhood trauma. Maybe he had a good reason. I'm just burnt out on putting everyone else first and trying to fill the role of both parents for my kids right now. I feel like it's only so long before I snap and the rope just got a lot thinner. Edit. Thank you for your kind words and advice. When I posted, I was thrown for the loop and on the verge of a mental breakdown. I haven't had time to sleep on it. I feel things are going to turn out okay. I'll look into some of the suggestions, such as professional nanny and babysitting services to go along with them. My sister has also said she may be able to work remotely during those weeks and be able to supervise while the kids hang out in his hotel room, McDonald's, library, or somewhere else she can work while watching. Not ideal because it means they would have to cancel some planned activities. Cancelling or postponing the trip would be a last resort. I won't make any decision rashly. I'm going to take a few days to think about things, talk it out with my therapist on Thursday, and have a definite answer by Monday. It might not be possible for me to supervise. At first I panicked because I didn't think I would have to and felt unprepared, but I might be able to psych myself up for it in time. I've been through worse trials than this. Sometimes I just need to remind myself that I'm stronger than I feel. I appreciate the kindness and civility from this community. I wasn't sure if my post belonged here, but you all seem more understanding than other subs and I truly appreciate it. And we do have another update in a moment as well. I do want to say I get where OP is coming from, that they're dealing with so many different things going on. You're still dealing with grief, you're still dealing with your husband who pretty much had a second life. Like OP said, if OP disappeared, would he have abandoned their children? And their whole life could have been a lie. So I understand that OP is like, who knows what you're thinking in that particular situation. You've got that going on. The husband died as well. You're trying to deal with two children that are dealing with all this themselves. And then a son you didn't know about comes into your life. Of course, that's going to absolutely mess you up. And then you need to think about how to navigate that situation. Like I said, of course, I absolutely feel for the son. OP added another update and says, I don't think I'm going to post in this community anymore, as I don't really count as a step parent, but I got some kind words from people here previously. I just want to say thank you all for being kind to me and presenting me with solutions when I was overwhelmed and panicking, and let you all know how the visit went. He stayed for about 1.5 weeks. Before he came over, we talked a few times on Zoom, with me, him and his grandparents. I told him my sister was not going to be able to supervise, and I was frank about how apprehensive I was feeling about being the one to supervise. I don't think he was thrilled about me supervising either. He knew and felt comfortable with my sister, not me, so the feeling was mutual. But we decided to go ahead with a visit anyway. We made a few changes in what they had previously planned when my sister was going to supervise, but not many. We also discussed contingency plans for if something went wrong and one of us needed space. Just knowing that I would have that out if needed was a huge relief and helped immensely. Overall, things went relatively well. He and I were civil. I got uncomfortable, but not to the point where I couldn't cope. He and my girls got along well, with the exception of one incident when my girls got into a spat with each other and he tried to intervene, which made them both mad at him. But it was quickly resolved after each girl had their time stewing about it. I will say he was good with both of my girls, but especially my 8-year-old, who's been having a very difficult time lately, even before her father died. She's been struggling a lot with school and trying to find the right treatment for multiple diagnoses. She's been acting out and very easily frustrated for a lot of the adults in her life, including me, I admit. I love her and I do my best, but she is difficult sometimes. But with her brother, it's like they are kindred spirits or something. He was a proper real trooper acting out scenes from the movie Encanto with her over and over. I realize it is probably really good for her to have an adult in her life who doesn't want anything from her except to spend time with her. Before the boy left, I gave him a thank you card expressing this to him, and that I genuinely do hope he chooses to stay involved. Overall, it was a positive thing. I'm glad we went ahead with the visit, and thank you again to those of you who left supportive comments. It was a much better experience posting here than when I tried to seek advice in other subs. Oh god, that set me off. Hope he added one more comment which says, things are more or less the same, but I'm learning to live with it better and better each day. I got my 9-year-old daughter into equestrian therapy, which she enjoys. We have made a point to not call it therapy. It probably is good for her, but it hasn't made a noticeable difference in how she seems to be behaving or coping. She's still at her old school, but I've made the decision that if a spot opens in the charter school, she'd definitely be switching. My 14-year-old is bouncing back a little better and enjoying her first year of high school so far. The high school is large with lots of options for extracurriculars and such that are very little cost, which I think is good for her since she was previously involved in a lot. We had to cut back due to financial constraints after my husband died. My husband's son came for another visit last month. It didn't go as well. He brought his girlfriend. She was polite but not very interested in my girls. I think my 9-year-old was a bit jealous that she had to share her brother's attention with the girlfriend and was a bit mopey and prone to mini meltdowns during that time. It wasn't the most fun time ever for anyone, unfortunately. My husband's son and his girlfriend are invited to Thanksgiving at my parents' house. We'll see how that goes. I at least feel more accepting of him being around now. Last year it was hard even to look at him. I know none of this is his fault, but it was hard to see him as his own person and not just a reminder that my husband lied. And this year I felt a little better. I don't know, and I'm just trying to accept that I never will know why my husband lied to me or how much he lied about. The best I can figure is that it was some kind of coping mechanism that he developed growing up in foster care to keep all his different families separate from each other, if that makes sense. He didn't keep in touch with anyone he grew up with, not form a foster family, but also not even friends from back then, nor did he ever talk about them. He told me very general vague details about how it was a horrible situation but very few specifics. I always thought it was odd but wanted to respect that his past is painful for him and wished he could tell me more, but didn't want to pry. I don't and will never know, but I have a hunch that it all ties together for him. He just has a compulsion to keep different parts of his life separate. It's the best reason I could come up with after agonizing over it for so long anyway. And I'm super glad to see things are moving in the right direction. I know there's a lot going on in one story, but it sounds like it's moving in the right direction for this family, and I really do hope that it continues to do so. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? If you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And our next story comes from wantownlife, who says, my 57 female daughter, 30 female, is getting married for the 3rd time. I do not want to pay for her wedding, and I feel like a bad parent. I should start by saying that my daughter is an only child. She has always been our princess, so to speak, and she's received everything material that a girl could ask for. Before you criticize my husband, her father, and I for spoiling her, we do realize that we shouldn't have given her everything from a young age, but we didn't know any better back then, and we had the money. We're quite well off, so we figured why not support our only child. My husband owns his business and I am a school teacher.
Together we make decent money and I'm looking to retire in the near future. When we first started out, I stayed at home and my husband worked an office job. And so my daughter has been pampered with all my attention and her father's support. She is now going to be married for the third time in her short life. Her only job is occasionally supply teaching in the same school board I work at. So she doesn't have much of a big career yet, but I do hope she will find work. I'll spare you the long of it. She married her high school boyfriend at 22 years old, and they divorced less than 2 years later in a bitter fight. The wedding was lavish and it was her first, and we truly believed that they would make it work. I guess my husband and I also saw through rose-colored glasses since we were married very young as well, and are approaching our 35th anniversary. My husband and I pitched in around $25,000 for the wedding ceremony and reception, and perhaps another $3,000 for the honeymoon to Europe. The second time she was proposed to by another man she was dating. He was a hard-working blue-collar man, but his family didn't have much money. Again, she asked if we could help out with her wedding, that it was true love this time around. We met the man and he was a stand-up, wholesome person. And so, a year after that, my daughter, then 27, was married to the second husband. We paid for almost all of the wedding costs and the honeymoon to the tune of $43,000. Our then husband's mother was a nurse, and his father was a deadbeat. They didn't provide much when it came to the wedding itself, and I admit, the husband and I did harbour ill will towards the fact that our husband's father's name was clearly printed on the reception and invitations as a generously contributing member of the wedding party. But that's another story. And they did divorce because of money issues less than 3 years later. We, tired by this time, forked over money for her divorce costs and tried to regroup our finances. We do have a comfortable nest egg saved up for post-retired life. I would like to travel the world and maybe buy a small lake house with my husband. He also enjoys woodworking as a hobby. But now my daughter, who has begun dating another man, has excitedly showed us that she is engaged once again. The man in question proposed less than a year into their dating, and she is elated more than anything, because after her second divorce, she didn't think any man would want her anymore. My daughter has hinted at the wedding costs and brings home bridal magazines and ideas for cakes and dresses and venues, and I want to be happy for her happiness. But there's a voice inside me that is screaming enough. I have spent almost over $140,000 of my husband's and my money for my daughter's 2 failed marriages, wedding, reception, honeymoon costs, divorce costs, and I cannot believe she is thinking of planning another lavish ceremony at our expense. I've tried suggesting maybe this time around she should opt for a small backyard ceremony this time, but she turns it around on us and says that we don't believe in her happiness and that we are being cheap, as she is our only daughter and her father and I are quite well off, which to be fair, she is right. I'm at a loss of what to say to her. And what jumped out to me in this one straight away in the first paragraph, you said she's always been your princess, she had everything that she could ask for, and you said that you spoiled her and you realized that, and you shouldn't have given her everything from a young age, but you didn't know better back then. But now you've continued to do so by paying for these 2 weddings, and she's expecting it as well. And it just kind of feels, if you pay for this one, there's going to be another wedding down the road at some point as well. I would absolutely just be putting your foot down and saying, not at all, that's not happening, I'm not paying for it. You spent over $140,000 already, holy moly. J Barber Sky says, if your daughter has truly found love in this third relationship, then it shouldn't depend on an expensive wedding. You and your husband should firmly tell your daughter that you are not going to pay for her third wedding. If she wants an expensive wedding, she should get a job and pay for it herself. And if you can't get over your guilt, you might want to consider seeing a good therapist to help you sort through all your feelings. You're doing your daughter no favors by continuing to fork over money. Sounds like to me, she's more in love with lavish weddings than with men she chooses to stand in to play the role of groom. Another user says, so lots of people have told you that you shouldn't pay. What I haven't seen yet is someone saying she will probably throw an epic tantrum when you put your foot down, and you will have to stick it out or she will win, and the next time you try to put your foot down, she'll throw an even bigger tantrum. This is a well-known in research behavioral phenomenon known as extinction, which is what happens when you stop reinforcing behavior that used to be reinforced. If you don't firmly say no and stick with it, you are forever screwed. She will say mean things, she'll get really nasty. Stay calm and don't budge. This is a 30-year-old toddler that you've created. All the times you didn't say no are going to bite you in the ass here. And I'm saying, be ready. Do not let her manipulate you on this one. It's totally in your power not to write that check. For what it's worth, my well-off parents gave me $5,000 for my wedding in 2008. I would never fucking dream of asking for that financial support for a second wedding. Panic Bread quotes a section and says, "You are continuing to ruin your child. Parenting doesn't stop when they turn 18. Grow a backbone and tell your kid, stop suggesting, and straight up tell your kid under no uncertain terms that you will not pay for her wedding. She will throw the inevitable temper tantrum. Don't back down." And one more comment which says, she's a 30-year-old adult. It's fucking ridiculous you would ask, and it's ridiculous if you consider paying a valid option, which it sounds like you don't. As someone her age, I'm 33, I would be absolutely ashamed if I were her, in even hinting at this. I'd be appalled if my parents even tried to pay for me for something since, I'm an adult and make my own money. You've made some mistakes and raised an entitled monster. You need to find a way to stop this before wedding number 4. I sort of wonder about all these people that's being invited to this wedding every time. Is it all family and friends and everyone that's turning up? Don't get me wrong, I know people have second marriages, possibly third marriages, but I'm not sure how I would feel in that situation inviting all those people 2 or 3 times, That's just myself. I know, as I said, I know there's people out there that have 2 marriages, etc. under different circumstances, but it just sounds like this is a constant thing. The OP does update the post and says, "Hello, it's been a long time. I wanted to retroactively thank everyone for the advice and the anger. Must admit that hearing others rage about my situation was pretty cathartic for me. I wasn't going to log back in to post an update. I couldn't even recall the password for this throwaway account, but so many of you gave me excellent advice that I feel I must give an update, sad as it is. Long story short, my daughter is getting her 3rd divorce. We're no longer on speaking terms and she has broken our hearts. Short story long, as many of you predicted, she threw a great big tantrum when her father and I told her explicitly that we would not be paying for the wedding this time around. We said we would buy her a wedding dress and the cake, but that would be the end of it. That whatever else she wanted would have to come from her and her husband's pocketbook. She said we don't care for her happiness. She cried, said that we were selfish. Everything all you said was going to happen. All these things hurt so much to hear because they aren't true. We do care very much for her, but enough wasn't simply enough. She went so far as to chuck her wedding planner binder into the backyard pool, which was grotesque to watch. We asked to meet the fiancé in question over dinner. What a gem he was. Tattoos all over his knuckles and his neck. Showed up to meet us in sweatpants and an ill-fitting hoodie. Didn't even shake our hand or introduce himself properly. He looked like trailer trash. When we asked what his occupation was, he said he was a sound technician, which made me feel embarrassed for being so prejudiced. But after a quick conversation at the dinner table, where he behaved in the most disgusting manner, turns out he is a freelance DJ. At 39 years old, I believe one should at least be put together, not living with other roommates and working at clubs on weekends. My daughter, I do not know what was wrong with her. She looked at him with such adoring eyes, as if he were the best thing since sliced bread. We doubted that he could provide for himself, let alone a family. I don't know if this was a sign, but the sight of this man-boy solidified our decision to not finance a drop of our daughter's 3rd wedding. We still agreed to pay for the cake and dress, but no more. We even had doubts that maybe this thug was only planning to marry our daughter for the money. We assumed it was true when we found out she'd been paying for a few months' worth of his rent that he could not afford to pay out of his own pocket. Like I said, I don't know what was wrong with her. We gave her a budget of $13,000 for a beautiful dress and maybe another $2,000 for the cake. The wedding plan in itself was a disaster, as my daughter had a meltdown over every single little thing that went wrong, even though we tried to tell her that she could use the $15,000 budget to plan the entire wedding instead of just spending it on the dress and cake alone. That was our intention. That maybe she could scale back the dress and cake for a more humble affair. Maybe it would teach her the value of $1. She would not budge. She did not invite us to the wedding, let alone the reception. We don't even know how it was, as we're not shown any photographs afterwards. I spent the entire week crying when I found out she had left us out of the wedding party. She came back a few times with a U-Haul and her disgusting husband to take her possessions from our home and moved in with him. While my husband and I were gone on a vacation to New Orleans, right before Christmas, we had received several voicemails, all from our daughter. Her voice was slurring as if she'd been heavily drinking or on drugs. She said that she was going to divorce as he was a fucking deadbeat who couldn't even treat her to a nice dinner. She said she's had to sell her engagement ring to pay for the rent, as she is still living with his roommates, and that this is the part that just sends me into anger. If only we had paid for her wedding and helped her buy a home with him. This wasn't even discussed between us. I do not know where she got this idea from, and that she would have made this marriage last if we had given her more money. My God, what have we done? I'm shaking with anger just typing this. My husband wanted to leave her a seething voicemail. I talked him out of it. As far as we know, she has moved forward with a divorce. We'll be here for her. We will take her back into our homes, but only if she wishes. At this point, we have heard nothing from her, and she does not pick up her phone. It is so easy to blame ourselves for being bad parents, and I just feel so awful. She is our only child, and if any of our nieces or nephews behave this way to our siblings, we would have cut them out of the family in a second. But we can't. She is our only child, now 31 years old and a thrice divorcee. It pains me so much what has happened over the last year. I feel like I've lost a daughter. You put another $15,000 into this wedding and you wasn't even invited, later criticized for not putting more money into it, buying a house as well? And that was OP's last post on the matter. And where do you go with that? OP said that they will take their daughter in if they reach out. And I can't help but feel that's still going to be enabling that behavior. Maybe if you do take her in, it's under stipulations that she seeks help, counseling, or something along those lines. Because surely you just can't continue like this. Holy moly, that's incredibly sad. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And our next story is going to be one from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. Doesn't have an update as yet. From Icy Performer 3310, who says, "Am I the arsehole for ignoring my ex-wife's wishes regarding having our daughters in my wedding and uninviting her? I, 43 male, am getting married to my partner, Lauren, 32 female, in less than a month. It is a destination wedding that has been in the pipeline for over 18 months now. I have my two daughters, 16 and 11, with my ex-wife, Anna, 46 female, and Lauren has a daughter from a prior relationship, deceased ex due to a car accident while Lauren was pregnant, who is 5. Anna and I split 5 years ago, when Anna realized she was bi and wanted to pursue a woman from her work. I will admit that I probably moved on with Lauren too fast due to my devastation over my 21-year relationship ending, and Lauren still being in grief from the loss of her husband, plus struggling with, at the time, a very sick newborn. However, for the most part, we have all been able to remain amicable, and we all went to Anna's marriage to a co-worker, Lynn, about 6 months ago. Originally, the plan for my wedding to Lauren was for us all to travel to the destination together, so that my eldest could be a bridesmaid, and her younger two could be flower girls. However, Anna and Lynn have recently broke up, and Anna has asked us to postpone our wedding out of respect to her. When I tried to explain that it is impossible, as it would cost us a lot to do, she flew off the handle and accused me of deliberately hurting her, cheating on her with Lauren. Not true, though there was a couple of months between our split and meeting Lauren. Leaving her for a younger woman, called Lauren a gold digger and threatened to ruin our wedding. I hung up on her and sent her an email uninviting her from our wedding due to a threat. She now says she is revoking consent to our daughter's participation. I don't think this is fair on them, and I don't want them to feel left out, so I merely pointed out that the wedding is on my week, and she doesn't get a say. Am I the arsehole if I ignore her wishes?" Edited to add, there was an incident with a trip to NZ a bit over a year ago where Anna tried to stop the trip. She thought we were showing off our financial state / we were visiting Lauren's former in-laws so they could see her daughter / their granddaughter for the first time since COVID, and we ended up having to involve lawyers. There is a precedent for me being able to take the girls overseas without Anna's permission, so as long as it doesn't affect her time with them. Now, she's just angry from what's going on in her life right now, and as long as you're not going to get yourself in trouble, like taking the kids out of state or whatever, like you said in your edit there, then absolutely not the arsehole to me. I wouldn't blame you for uninviting her from your wedding. She threatened to do something during it, so now how can you trust her? I guess my only worry now is that she may say something to the children to turn them against you or something along those lines. Razar says, not the arsehole, Anna is low-key acting bitter. Yeah, she's having a tough time, but I wouldn't even ask my best friend to postpone her wedding because I'm going through a breakup. She's overreacting, trying to guilt you by keeping the kids away from a special moment just because things didn't go her way. Especially if she never mentioned any of the issues she now has with your fiancé. Why now? I wish I see more of an emotional reason than concern of safety for your kids, or anything in that nature. I would honestly keep my foot down and have my daughter still be part of my wedding. If I had legal custody, of course, which I'm assuming you do, stating it's your week anyway. Please Coffee Me says it's rich that she's accusing you of cheating when her desire to cheat on you was the reason she broke up a 21-year marriage. Anna needs some help, therapy, to get through her breakup. She's being unreasonable. Anna is aware of the cost to postpone a wedding, not only for you, but for all of your guests who have already made plans. It might cost a bit, but tell her you're going to involve lawyers again. Remind her she has lost that battle before, how much unnecessarily it costs both of you. Not the arsehole. Oh, that name, Please Coffee Me, I could do with a brew right now. But I'm going to turn this one to you guys because the comments pretty much follow along the same lines in that one. What do you guys make of that situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Again from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from Double Mobile 8057 and says, am I the arsehole for telling my son he will not be taking over the family business and it is going to my daughter? I have two kids, my oldest son and my daughter. They're 25 and 21. We have a family business that works on farm equipment and it is a very good business. Most farmers, if something breaks, can usually fix it, but when they call us, they will pay a lot, so they don't have to buy another $500,000 tractor. Anyways, I've been telling my kids since they were young that if they want to take over the business, then they have to get a business degree and work a lot with me to learn everything. Basically, they have to put in the work. When they were both teenagers, I took them on jobs so they would understand the job. My son made it very clear he didn't want the job and went to college for sociology. My daughter, on the other hand, threw herself into the business. She's about to graduate with a business and robotics majors. She also decided to stay at home during college and she's been working with me in her free time. The only issue with my daughter is that she has trouble lifting things, but that's what strength training is for. So now is the problem. My son gave me a call. He moved away for a job after graduation and he told me he wants to take over the business. I told him no, and it's going to his sister. This started a huge argument and he called me a jerk. He contacted some of the older relatives and they are mad at me also. Editing, I'm not splitting the business because it causes way too many problems. Now, my thought you've already countered with your edit. I was thinking, can't you just give him like a lower share of the business, 10, 20% or something like that? You were giving your daughter the overall share. But if you're not prepared to do that, then I would say, you set out your requirements and your daughter took those up while your son chose not to. I don't think it would be very fair to go back on that now and take that away from your daughter when she's worked towards it. But Queenie B says, not the arsehole, your son walked away from the responsibilities of what your company needs to continue to exist, while your daughter dedicated herself to the company's continued success. Not only should he not take over the company, but he shouldn't be involved in it in any way. There's nothing he could contribute to it and would only use his assets. I've worked for too many companies that the parents made successful, only for entitled descendants to suck away the profits without doing any work. Opie says I agree with him not being involved at all. I don't trust him not to undermine his sister or just not to cause issues in the first place for the business. It's already hard work and I don't want to make it harder for her. Living Highlight says not the arsehole, it's not 1802. The oldest boy doesn't automatically inherit everything anymore. Okay son, so you think you're entitled to the business despite your sister working her ass off to learn the business, get a degree in business and get expensive experience in the business. And that she did all of this because I was very clear about my expectations for whoever would want to take it over. She completed those expectations, you did not. Explain to me how giving the business to you makes sense and wouldn't be a complete betrayal to your sister. Honestly, what could he possibly say? And the comments did continue down that path. But what do you guys make of this one? Do you have a different opinion on the matter? How would you consider splitting that business if you was in that position, or do you think it could cause more issues down the road? family working together, that kind of thing. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from a throwaway account and says, "Today I messed up by stalking my husband's Reddit account. Using a throwaway because he probably knows my main, and I don't want him to know I know yet. This also technically started a few days ago, but it's been stuck in my head since, and I need to get my thoughts out. When we met and the entire 3 years we dated before we were married, I was always firm about not wanting kids. My husband told me that his stance on kids was along the lines of kind of undecided, but overall not a good idea. Always said he used to want kids but changed his mind later in life. I wholeheartedly believed him until I decided to snoop. We're both pretty avid Reddit users, and he wanted to brag to me about how many upvotes one of his comments had. I watched him as he clicked on his profile to find it, and I caught his username and a glimpse of another comment where it looked like he was talking about me. We never tried hiding each other's accounts from one another, but it's not like his was a secret. But I still feel a little bad for letting curiosity get the best of me. I looked up his username later in the day to check out what he had to say about me. To his credit, he was gushing about me, and it was really sweet. But quite a few of his other comments also talked about how he wishes he could have had children of his own, and that the only thing stopping him is me. Talks about how his desire to be with me outmatches his desire to have kids, but he's still heartbroken that he can't have both. I still don't know what to make of it. On the one hand, I'm hurt that in almost the 10 years we've been together, he's never talked to me about this and instead lied to me to make it seem like we're on the same page. I feel immense guilt that I've taken such a choice away from him, especially after reading about just how badly he wants it. On the other hand, and I can't believe I'm about to type this out, it's making me rethink my stance. For the first time in my 32 years of existence, I'm uncertain about whether I want kids or not. I've always thought pregnancy and birth sounds like a nightmare, and I simply don't have the mental bandwidth to devote all my time to raising a child. But suddenly, I'm having daydreams about it all. Hell, just last night I fell asleep while fantasizing about what would happen if my birth control failed, and we decided to just roll with it instead of getting an abortion. Every argument I try to come up with against it is easily refuted by how our life is currently going. We own our house, we both have good jobs that pay well, and I work from home on my own schedule, so we wouldn't have to worry about daycare or extended maternity leave. The fact that I'm even reconsidering it is absolutely terrifying. What if I think on it for another year, decide to go for it, then regret it? What if I'm only thinking about it now because I want to make him happy? What if I decide to ignore these thoughts and later regret not trying before we got too old? What if he thinks he wants me now but later resents me for not letting him live the life he always wanted? Anyway, this got much longer than I thought it would be. I'm using this sub instead of something like r/confessions because I do consider this a fuck up. I regret looking into his Reddit account. I wish I could go back to a few days ago where this wasn't on my mind and I thought things were going great between us. I'm sorry if this isn't as interesting as "Today I messed up by sleeping with someone's mum" or whatever usually gets popular. I just needed to get this all off my chest. Edit. I was not expecting this post to blow up as much as it has. I'm sorry I haven't responded to many people, but I promise I've read almost every comment. I was going to sit on it for a few more days before saying anything to him, but everyone calling me out for essentially being a pussy is making me realize I should just talk to him tonight before I let my weird anxiety blow it more out of proportion than it already has. I still haven't decided whether to bring up how my views have changed regarding children, as I don't want to get his hopes up if I change my mind back. I'll see how the conversation goes. To address a few things I've seen mentioned by you guys. Don't worry, I'm not throwing out my birth control tonight and jumping straight to baby making. I'm honestly still leaning more into the not having any kids side, and if my mind changes more, it's still not happening until we both want one without a shadow of a doubt. The just talk to him, communicate. I appreciate the concern, but keeping it to myself forever was never an option for me. Our communication is usually fantastic, and I'm planning on sitting down with him. I was just panicking a bit while writing this and wasn't sure the when, how, and what all I'd like to share with him. And the "why do you think doing the same thing he did will solve your problems?" And it says, you know what, you got me there. I'll probably show him this post eventually anyway, so I'm not sure how much water these comments hold. You may be right that I shouldn't have shared this with strangers on the internet. I will say though, I kinda get why people do it now. To quote one of my own comments, it's It's like having a sea of little angels and devils on your shoulders, which to be honest is a little cool and almost cathartic. I'll update tomorrow morning if anyone is interested. Is it better to edit the post or make a new one? I'm unfamiliar with this subreddit, but otherwise thank you all for your help. For the hate Reddit gets for being toxic and negative, all of you have had either very insightful advice or were very funny to hear from. I don't think there's very much I can really say to this post apart from that you have to communicate, and you've already answered that yourself and you're going to by the sounds of it. And in the comments, Cake or Death says, the only wrong move here is to do nothing. There is nothing wrong with changing your mind. Stop thinking about only yourself as being only the person you were for the 32 years. You are allowed to grow and evolve and change your mind. It's one of the beautiful things about growing up. It's cliche, but it's true. Couples that don't grow together will instead grow apart, but that means that both of you have and will continue to grow, and that could include you growing into wanting children. Have the conversation with him, be open-minded, but also be prepared to understand yourself as an individual and as part of a couple. Even better, and maybe learn that you do not in fact want kids, but he more and more does. And be prepared to accept the consequences of that. But don't just keep it inside and let it fuck with your head without doing something about it. Printman says, I wouldn't call what he did lying to make it seem like you guys are on the same page. To me it seems like he buried his feelings to protect what he has with you. Maybe not the best idea, but it's worth something as far as your relationship goes. You both still need to talk about this obviously, but I don't think he was being nefarious in any way. Save the Husky says, I will let everyone else address the just talk to him stuff. I want to address how you are feeling yourself. You're not the same person you are today as you were even yesterday. People grow and change and that's okay. From my perspective, what it is or it's not worth, I was like you, solidly against having kids. Didn't have the time nor patience for them. Wanted a life that was me doing what I wanted, whenever I wanted, and someone that could go along with that. Absolutely steadfastly refused to date anyone with kids. Then met someone volunteering in a solidly not dating environment. Life changed and we found ourselves in a dating situation. He had 2 beautiful daughters, but I knew I wanted him, so I said let's give it a try. Happily I learned how to be a stepmom and how to love his kids as if they were my own. Then this thought crept into my mind and wouldn't leave. What about my own? Now we have a rambunctious, adorable, precocious 4-year-old boy who adores his sisters and they adore him. Would I be okay not having him? Yes, I think my life would have been fulfilled, living how I wanted. But I am so thankful I did. My husband was fine with his girls, but happy to have another. He let me drive that ship from day one. I think one of our purposes as humans is to live and grow. It doesn't surprise me that you are changing, maybe being more open to something you once weren't. But put some soul searching and time into it and have an open and honest communication with yourself and your husband. I just want you to know that change is okay. The OP does come in to update their post and says, hi again guys, a few of you asked for an update. I hope it's okay I made a new post rather than edit my original or try to cram it into a comment as my original was getting a bit long and messy, and this update is also pretty long. I was not expecting my story to be interesting enough to get such an insane amount of attention. I'm a tad embarrassed my inner thoughts had so many eyes on it. But the secret little egocentric in me thanked you all for my 15 minutes of fame, lol. I'll put a TLDR at the bottom. But the gist of this update is my husband is an incredible partner and human being, and I'm an idiot who holds on to my big ball of anxiety for no real reason. Almost all your replies were very sweet and supportive. I didn't respond to most of them, but I read them all, but it didn't stop me from feeling super nervous about confronting him. It's hard to explain, but I get a little overly stressed about things that aren't as big of a deal as I make them. I've been wanting to get checked out for whatever anxiety disorder I probably have, but just haven't gotten around to it. I was hoping to let him decompress when he got home from work before I brought the topic up. But he knows I overly deep clean when I get nervous, so when he walked through the door and saw me taking a toothbrush to our oven, he knew something was up and asked about it. Obviously, I didn't take notes on exactly what was said, but I'll do my best to paraphrase. I started out by saying, don't freak out, this isn't anything super serious, it's just me being classic Jane. I then went on to explain that I was extremely sorry for invading his privacy, but that I looked up his account and read some of his comments and he interrupted me by laughing. He didn't just laugh, this motherfucker, said with love, I'm not actually mad, saw what a wreck I was and had the audacity to guffaw loud enough to startle me. He then said, so that was you? You guys were right. He found my original post. I feel silly for thinking he wouldn't, but I figured it wouldn't get as popular as it did, and between him spending most of the day at work instead of on Reddit, and saying he wasn't a fan of subreddits like these, that he would somehow miss it. In my defense, I had changed enough details about our lives that he wasn't totally sure until I told him I found his account. But yeah, he had his suspicions. He sat me down at this point and basically said, "I know you well enough to know you don't actually want kids. This is just a phase." I won't go into details because it's pretty personal, but he presented his arguments for why he thinks that he's 100% right. He then followed up with, "I don't think you interpreted what I wrote correctly." He doesn't want to share his account with everyone, so I won't copy and paste the comment, but when he wrote that he loved me more than he wanted kids, he didn't mean giving up that life just to make me happy. He meant that being with me completely changed his outlook. Us being together meant that we could travel anywhere we want together, have romantic dates where we stay out as late as we want, get freaky until 4 AM without worrying about being too loud or having to wake up a few hours later to get our child crying for breakfast. He realized he didn't want kids when he married me because he didn't want to share our life together with anyone else. When I asked him why he said he felt heartbroken that he couldn't have both, he explained that he didn't articulate that comment very well. He wasn't necessarily heartbroken that he could never have children of his own, but rather he was grieving the loss of his imaginary children and a mentality he held on to for his entire life, up until he changed his mind. Imagine it felt a little bit like my freak out in the original post, where I was scared and confused by my own change of heart, but on a bigger scale, over a longer period of time. That one's a little tricky to paraphrase, and may not make sense to some people, but the way I explained it made complete sense, I swear. Lol. Anyway, everything went smoothly, and we decided by the end of our conversation to stick with having no kids, but we'll regularly check in with each other about it in case we ever change our minds. And it's another story where communication wins the day again, and it's gotta be said, I love to see it every once in a while. We get so much drama. To see a healthy couple, it's quite refreshing sometimes. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from Colossal Screw Up. And before we do get into this story, I do want to give you a warning. It does contain homophobia, so if you do want to skip the story, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. And it's titled, "Would I be the arsehole if I wear a Halloween costume that makes my friend's partner uncomfortable?" Also, just to mention at the same time, this is a story that was suggested to me. It's from a couple of years back, and I think it was around the pandemic sort of time. So it starts off. "Hey Reddit peeps, I really need some help here. My 21 male boyfriend Alex, 23, absolutely loves Halloween. Our whole friend group loves the holiday, and we make a point to have a Halloween party every year. We're sad that we can't have our usual party this year, but we're still planning on having a little Halloween party thing on Zoom, so we still have an excuse to dress up and get drunk together. Anyway, our friend Sasha has been dating a guy, let's call him David, for about a year now. We didn't have many complaints about David. He's pleasant enough to us, excluding a couple of slightly homophobic comments, which he apologized for after he found out Alex and I were a couple. And most importantly, he makes Sasha happy. However, when we were talking about costumes on call the other day, things got a little weird. Our friend group consists of 5 girls and 3 guys. We're all pretty big AHS, which I think is American Horror Story fans, and the girls all decided that they were going to go as witches from Coven. Their costumes are absolutely stunning. Alex and I are planning on dressing as Michael Langdon and Mr. Gallant. Anyways, we asked David about his costume, and he told us he'd actually planned for the 3 of us to go as Ross, Joey, and Chandler from Friends. Now, I love me some Friends, but Alex and I have already bought most of the pieces for our costumes. We don't really want to change it at this point. We told him as much and apologized. If he asked us earlier, we would have most likely agreed to this. He left the chat about 10 minutes later, but nothing really seemed off. Until he texted me later in the day. He told me that he was uncomfortable with us going as Michael and Gallant, as they often get shipped together and are most likely fairies. David told us he was uncomfortable with us flaunting our sexuality at every chance we got, and that it was making him uncomfortable. We apparently ruined Harry Potter for him when we dressed up as Remus and Sirius last year. Anyway, David is still insistent on us changing our costume. We've also been accused of trying to isolate him, as he isn't too into American Horror Story. He can dress up as literally anything he wants, there's no rules. I really don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, and I don't want David to feel like he's unwelcome, but Alex and I were really excited about our costumes this year. I know this seems like a stupid thing to be worried about, but we don't want to cause trouble for Sasha, as she really likes David, and we don't want her getting caught in the middle of some stupid argument over a goddamn Halloween costume. I'd feel awful if we were the reason that they started to have problems in their relationship. Would I be the arsehole? Edit. Okay, I did not expect this to get so many replies. Thank you so much to everyone who commented and offered advice, I really appreciate it. Oh, and just quickly, AHS stands for American Horror Story. My stupid ass thought I'd already written that, sorry. I've seen a few people asking if Sasha knows about David's behaviour. She doesn't. Well, didn't. Not long after they started dating, David made a few comments about being against gay marriage, and knowing full well that Alex and I hope to get married someday, Sasha blew up at him. She was disgusted that he'd think like that, and she almost left him after that incident. We felt awful for her, as she really did like David, and he kept making promises to her that it wouldn't happen again, and apologized profusely. Sasha made David apologize to us and asked Alex if I would be okay speaking to him again, and believing it was a one-off occurrence, we said sure. He made Sasha really happy after all, and she'd never stay with him if we weren't comfortable being around him. We kept the homophobic jokes to ourselves, but told him that they were homophobic. To his credit, he did apologize, though it was most likely not sincere. He told Sasha about this whole situation about an hour ago and sent her screenshots of the conversation. She was disgusted, and we heard a good 5 minutes of their argument before Sasha apologized and told us she'd call us when she had dealt with him. We've had a text from Sasha apologizing for all of this, but it's not her fault. We're starting the comments with Dem, who says, okay, this really winds me up. How is he going to enter a friendship group and expect everyone to just bend to his idealized notion of what the world is? No. It's lovely that you guys are a couple, but that doesn't mean your characters are a couple. How homophobic do you have to be that your masculinity is that shaken? Seriously, would you guys be shipping characters if one of you went as Baby Shark and the other went as a fucking convict? The whole thing is ridiculous. If he wanted to coordinate outfits, he should have asked sooner. The group doesn't revolve around him, and Sasha should be having a word with him about alienating himself from the group. I'm not pulling the victim card bullshit. Not the arsehole, you coordinated outfits in your existing friendship group for an existing tradition, and someone's partner's masculinity and ego is threatened because of it, so therefore is playing victim. He needs to grow up. Opie says you make a good point there. We chose the characters because we like the characters, not because they get shipped. Mr. Gallant is a sassy bitch and I love him for it. Also, Sasha doesn't know about the conversation yet. She flipped out at him at the start of their relationship as he made a comment about how gay marriage shouldn't be allowed before he knew we were gay. So I know she wouldn't be happy about this. Thanks. But around a month or so later, Opie updated the post and says, I was going to post this a few days ago, but my professor decided to dump about 1 million projects on us at once, so it had to wait a little bit. Alex and I took the advice of you lovely people and talked to Sasha about David's behavior. We even sent her some screenshots. She went absolutely apeshit at him. Long story short, she broke up with him. This is where the story should end, but David is apparently a bit of a petty arsehole. We did originally only plan to have a small Zoom party with a couple of friends, but some mutual friends and people from some of our classes had asked if they could join. About 15 people all in. We're okay with this and decided to just have a larger Zoom party with them for a little bit, then leave and have a call with just our small, close-knit friend group. People we don't mind getting completely trashed with. We informed everyone of this and everything was going great. Until it wasn't. David is roommates with a mutual friend, Ryan, and is friends with a few people in our mutual friend group. So we decided he was going to join in with the festivities, knowingly making Sasha very uncomfortable. He made a few passing comments about how he left Sasha because she's a homophobic slur and kept asking her if they could call in private. He got shut down pretty quickly. Ryan is not one for that kind of drama, so he told David to get a grip. It made the whole thing pretty awkward to say the least. About an hour or so into this mess, Ryan shuts off his camera and mutes his mic. He and David were using the same computer. Yet another comment from David. When he turned the camera and mic back on, David was sulking beside him, just generally looking like a scolded child. Alex and I decided to mess around with him. Yes, it was petty. No, we do not regret it. We started dropping in some American Horror Story lines whenever we could, e.g., so you like leather? I like a lot of things. Any sort of suggestive dialogue we could think of between Michael and Gallant, not a massive amount to work with, but you know. We could see David was practically biting his tongue to not say anything. Eventually, after a whip comment from Alex, he left. Ryan just shook his head and laughed it off. Everyone else found it pretty amusing, and myself and Alex were pretty pleased with ourselves. The rest of the night was a hell of a lot better. David actually tried to contact Sasha a few days ago, but Sasha's dad was pretty quick to intervene. He's a big guy and I wouldn't want to piss him off. Long story short, David is out of all our lives now and Sasha is looking a lot happier. I know this probably isn't an update that anyone wants, but I wanted to post it anyways. Edit. Shit, I did it again. AHS stands for American Horror Story Guys. Sorry, my bad. I keep forgetting to add it. Also, just want to say thank you to everyone for your kind comments and awards. Now, apart from letting him get away with it one too many times and not cutting his shit off earlier, absolutely the right way you went about it and having him cut out of your life completely because Jesus, that guy, man, he's a right arsehole, isn't he? But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from Primary Shine 5657 and says, "My husband is upset with my behavior at a concert. My husband, 30 male and I, 26 female, went to a concert last weekend and we've argued about this a couple of times since, but aren't seeing each other's point of view. I love this band and I have a favorite member. I'm not attracted to this person, I just think he's super talented. Want to mention the whole band is in their 50s. I was front row and was really hoping to get a guitar pick as they will toss a few into the crowd after the show. As the guy was leaving the stage, I shouted his name and made like a praying gesture towards him saying please. He came to the edge of the stage and tossed me the pick and I caught it. I was jumping up and down saying thank you and he nodded at me and left. That is 100% the extent of our interaction and my husband witnessed the whole thing. He didn't like it though, was super mad, accused me of bouncing my boobs on purpose for the guy. I do not have much to bounce, lol. It wasn't that, just a natural excited reaction. Saying the guy had been checking me out and I was attention seeking. He found my behavior super disrespectful and embarrassing. I didn't do anything at the show besides that, except sing and dance a bit like everyone else. It's a metal show and it's not like a really sexy environment, just headbanging or jumping around a little. I just had jeans and a top on, low cut, but like I said, I don't have any cleavage. Was I over the top? Is this like a known weird groupie-ish thing to do at shows or is he overreacting? Edit for added details. No alcohol involved. Role reversal would not bother me. Husband is not typically jealous or insecure, but I'm pretty low-key and a shy person, so he doesn't get much occasion to be. Apart from concerts, I don't go out to bars or clubs, never without him, and I dress pretty modestly. If you really want to know the band, message because it's kinda obscure, and I don't want to ID myself further. Absolutely, it's not the arsehole to me in this situation. You were just excited to receive a guitar pick, jumped up and down, and he's just jealous and insecure about it. It's just as simple as that to me. And I mean, you know, concerts aren't a thing that I attend or get excited about at all. They're just not something that I would particularly enjoy, I don't think. But I can see why people would get excited about them, especially, you know, interacting with like the stars of the show, if you like, and they're throwing you a guitar pick. I can imagine you getting excited about that. And I think fair play to you, you know, if you're enjoying it, you're having a good time. What's wrong? It's not like you're going to jump on stage and run away with this guy, is it? You should see me when I go to watch football. I'm like, when I go to watch football live and, you know, I get overexcited. I'm jumping up and down and all sorts, shouting away. But Crabbiest Asp says, not the arsehole, we are also metalheads and my husband would be stoked for me if a band member gave me some memorabilia. It's like a gift from the gods. A deleted user replied to that and said, my husband and I were on the railing for Fall Out Boy this year and Pete Wentz winked at me and then threw me a guitar pick and my husband jumped up and down with me. Lol. Next comment from Who says he's overreacting. My wife has a favorite member in her favorite band. You know what I do? Flag him down and get his autograph on the set list for her. Find him on Cameo and have him send her messages on her birthday. You go be excited. Jump for joy. As a member of a band myself, you're the kind of fan any band wants. Your husband, not so much. Good luck and have fun and rock out right up front where you belong. BM Lad says, I would be embarrassed if my partner overreacted to something so dumb. Just the worst guy says, I started reading this expecting to read that you went backstage or somewhere private with the guy, which would be pretty inappropriate as a married lady. But you asked for and were given a pick. I don't know how often you talk about this musician, but it sounds like your husband is just insecure and jealous. Maybe look into that.
It is a silly reaction in his part, but there is likely something there to explore before things get worse. And one more comment which Opie replies to and says, "Not the arsehole, but I can't stand the fangirl/boy thing either, or anybody who obsesses over somebody else that doesn't care about them or knows they exist. I feel for your husband in that regard, because it would definitely be embarrassing to have your spouse obsess in any type of way over somebody that isn't you. Whether you think you were right or not, your husband was most definitely turned off by it enough to freak out on you for it. So I'd maybe take his feelings into consideration instead of asking Reddit, because all the people telling you he's an arsehole and you are right aren't going to fix anything." Which OP says, "I can understand that, but in your opinion, having fun at the show and asking for memorabilia and being excited about it is an obsession? I can understand if there were other behaviors. I'd be interested to hear what you think. Front row might seem kind of intense, but it costs the same. Low price as any ticket. Did wait in line for a couple of hours, but not too crazy when you were short, lol. I wear some merch and own their music, that's about it." So OP does come in with that update and says, "Thank you for the response on my last post. I got some genuinely helpful advice and wanted to update. First, I know that post was validation seeking, but I just needed to know if I was crazy or not for thinking my behavior wasn't out of line. A lot of people brought up points I hadn't thought of regarding why my husband may have reacted the way he did. And I had some conversations that made me think more about other jealous and insecure behaviors my husband displays that I've been accommodating without really thinking about it. So I decided to have a talk with him. I did not apologize for anything but validated his feelings about it, reassured him of my lack of any physical or romantic interest in that person and my absolute love and devotion to him. He ended up apologizing for making accusations about my intentions. We had further discussion about some behaviors around his jealousy and insecurity and the root of those feelings, which I will not get into except to say that he took responsibility for them and intends to work on it. We ended up in a really good place and I feel great about things. I know this won't make everyone happy when the range of responses I got was everything from divorce your abuser immediately to stop being a fatherless hoe, but it is what it is. May seem dramatic for a small issue, but as I said, underlying issues. Thanks again." So a couple of comments asked OP questions below the update. The first one said, "The fact an adult came to Reddit for advice before just speaking to their partner is baffling." And OP says, "I know it's stupid, but we did talk and it didn't go anywhere. We could not see each other's point of view and he was not able to express why he felt the way he did. Asking gave me perspectives I didn't have before and it was helpful. I understand what you mean though." Next commenter says, "So, did you compromise about anything or did you manage to get out of this without taking any personal flack at all?" The word I'm specifically looking for is compromise, as in your husband said he would take it easy and work on his insecurity, right? What have you done to better your relationship with him? Opie says, "I want to do more to show him that he is loved and appreciated and that he and our life together excites me and I let him know that. I should have included that." The person replies that and says, "Thank you for the reply and clarification. You're right that you should have included it because we readers can only go on the words you give us. If you don't include the words, it doesn't exist for us. I'm glad you and your partner are on a better path." Just food for thought though. This sort of thing, if my husband isn't okay with that, that's up to him to decide what to do. That's not healthy language. That's dangerous and shows some subconscious issues of your own that you should address before they become a problem. You need to remember that your husband is your lifeline and he's just as responsible for your comfort as you are his. If you treat him like that, telling him it's up to him to decide, chances are he will decide. OP responds and says, "I understand what you're saying with the language, but at some point there's a line, right? I'm not willing to police the way I naturally express joy at a concert when I don't feel my behavior is inappropriate in any way. I'm willing to do my part in addressing the underlying issues of why it makes him feel uncomfortable. I'm not saying I think it will come to that, but at some point, if that's not acceptable for him, he would have to evaluate if I'm the right partner for him. But yeah, that's not where we're at all. We're in a good place." And our next story is one that does have new updates at the end. So if you have found that you've heard this story elsewhere and you want to skip parts of the story, timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. This is from the Am I Wrong subreddit and it's titled, "Am I Wrong for Accidentally Getting My Parents Uninvited from My Brother's Wedding?" Back when my 25 male, ex Maria 24 female and I were dating, we set my brother Arthur 24 male up with his ex Jen 24 female, who was Maria's I guess now ex best friend. Maria and I dated for about a year and Arthur and Jen dated for about 9 months. We'd constantly do things together since Maria and Jen were best friends. Out of our little group, my personality matched Jen's the most, which led to us getting close. I felt so comfortable around Jen, and we both had a moment of weakness. We were at a party and we did the deed. We snuck around for about a week before Arthur and Maria found out. Jen and I decided we'd be better together, so we broke off our relationship and started dating each other. Jen and I dated for about 6 months, and it was amazing until I found out she was cheating on me and she left me for the other guy. I was heartbroken. I thought I found my match. I kept thinking about how good Maria was to me. In hindsight, she treated me way better than Jen ever did. I went to message her to beg her to take me back, but decided to look at her Instagram pictures first, and that's when I found out that her and Arthur had started dating in the 6 months Jen and I were together. They've been together for 4 years, and I found out from my parents that they're getting married in September. It hurt so much finding that out. What hurt even more was the fact that I didn't even receive an invite. I mean, I know things have happened between us, but Arthur and I are brothers. We're family. When I told my parents I hadn't received an invite, they phoned Arthur and tried to get him to invite me, but all that ended up doing is getting them uninvited. I tried calling Arthur to get them re-invited and to get myself invited, but he didn't answer any of my calls. My parents haven't said anything. I feel like they're mad at me for getting them uninvited from Arthur's wedding. Am I wrong for accidentally getting my parents uninvited from my brother's wedding? If I got this right, and there's every chance I got it wrong here, he betrayed the 2 people that's getting married, and now he's upset that he's not being invited to their wedding. What the hell? But someone breaks it down a bit in the comments. They said Arthur's perspective. His own brother betrayed him in one of the worst ways possible. He had his heart broken by his cheating ex. His now fiancée had her heart broken by the same person. They finally moved on and found happiness the right way. Parents then betray Arthur by daring to defend or vouch for OP, thus meaning they don't think it's as a big deal as Arthur does, which minimalizes his pain and is utterly disrespectful and unsympathetic, while also meaning that's how they truly felt the whole time. Arthur can't trust a single one of his immediate blood relatives and rightfully wants all of them unable to affect his peace, his soon-to-be wife and their big day. Fuck cheaters. Fuck the "but we're family" abusers. Fuck the "I know I was wrong but they're overreacting," and fuck anyone that sympathizes with those people. OK Lime says you're acting like a child for getting your mummy and daddy involved with something they had no business getting into. And who does that to your own brother? There is no person worth family, and I see you cry family now. We are brothers. Where did that little tidbit play in when you were screwing his girlfriend? You have no business dating anyone until you do some soul searching. As for your parents, you screwed them out of something they look forward to all their lives. Nice job. Unusual Focus says, oh boo-hoo, I cheated on my ex and now she hooked up with my brother. We're family. He's supposed to treat me like family. Never mind that I couldn't do the same. Jesus, this guy sounds like a narcissist. I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but I've studied a lot about them, and that at least sounds like a narcissist trait. Boo-hoo, everybody's supposed to think about me and only me. Fuck what anybody else wants. I'm the only person who matters. What the fuck is this guy on? Edit, I forgot to add that my most recent ex and the guy before him were both narcissists. That's how I was able to pick this out. That's how they acted. Like they could just do whatever they wanted, but if somebody put themselves first, they were in the wrong. And one more comment from Imaginary Standard who says the parents thought it was a good idea to ask Arthur to invite his brother, who cheated on Maria and screwed Arthur's girlfriend behind their backs, for the wedding. Even if OP had begged and pestered them about it, they should have told him no. They know what happened. The fact that OP found out about Arthur and Maria when he was going to message her to take him back is just... I have no words for this. It made me laugh. Karma. For him to want an invite is just idiotic. He probably also pats himself on the back for getting them together. This isn't everyone sucks here except for Arthur and Maria. I hope I got their names right. But in the comments below this one, someone says the brother gave their point of view, and it was over on the Entitled People subreddit. It was titled, "My brother slept with and ran off with my ex and now wants an invite to my wedding, getting my parents uninvited in the process." For the record, I tried posting this 3 days ago, but my account was too new. I24 Mail wasn't even going to make a post about this, but my brother, who I'll call Turk,
25 male, made 4 posts about it, so I thought I should share my side of the story. I use the same names he did for the sake of simplicity. My fiance is Maria, 24 male, and my ex is Jen, 24 female. A little over 5 years ago, my brother started dating Maria, my now fiance. 3 months after they started dating, they set me up with her, now ex, best friend, Jen. The 4 of us did a lot together since the girls were best friends. Turk and Maria dated for a year, and Jen and I dated for 9 months. At the end of our relationship, I came home early and found Turk and Jen having sex in my bed. After I processed the situation, I called Maria because I'd want to know if I was in her place. She came over and we confronted Turk and Jen. They dumped us and I found out 2 days later, started dating each other. It broke me. I came home to find my brother fucking my girlfriend only to run off with her. I had to move back in with my parents. It was infuriating because they kept talking about how happy Turk and Jen were. Throughout the next couple of months, Maria and I started talking. We were 2 people in similar shitty situations and we found some comfort in each other. 4 months after we got dumped, Maria and I officially started dating. 6 months after we got dumped, Turk found out Jen was cheating on him and she left him for the other guy. I actually only found this out today from reading Turk's post. Maria would get the occasional message from Turk, trying to reconnect, but she ignored him. Anyway, moving on to now, Maria and I are engaged and getting married in September. My parents were invited until my mum called me and threatened to not come if I didn't invite Turk. I told her not to bother coming regardless. In my mother's eyes, Turk can do no wrong. When he fucked and started dating my ex, I told my parents everything he did, and my mum tried defending him. Our relationship isn't the greatest, but it was somewhat decent. After I uninvited my parents, I only uninvited my mum, but my dad texted me and said he's not coming if my mum isn't. Turk blew up my phone trying to get a hold of me. This is the first time he's even tried reaching out to me in 4 years. Like I said before, Turk posted about the situation here on Reddit as well, and apparently my parents told him that Maria and I were getting married, and that started this whole thing of getting them uninvited. He stopped calling me, but he's blowing up my phone with texts begging me to re-invite my parents and possibly give him an invite. So yeah, I just wanted to get my side out there. And we do have like the final update in a moment, which comes from Arthur's side again, the one that we just heard from. And I know people are always super skeptical when we hear like both sides of the story, especially with the wild kind of logic we got going on in this post that, you know, a brother cheating and betraying his brother and then wanting to get re-invited to the wedding because of the old excuse, but family. And the parents backing him up on this because he's like the golden child of the family or something along those lines. It's just a betrayal from the whole family, isn't it? And there's no way you're going to move past that. It's just one of those situations. Let's just be done with it, cut them off, which I know is always easier said than done, but I can't see any other way through this. But a couple of comments from that one. Someone says, your mum downplaying what he did to you is kind of telling whose side she's on. I've come across that piece. It seems in Turk's eyes, he didn't do anything wrong either, and trying to get hold of Maria is also trying to steal her from you. You're better off without all of them from your life, moving forward. Good luck with your upcoming wedding. Turk's a dick. You should give them the invites but to a different location, like a graveyard since he can't stop digging up the past with Maria. Just make sure no one gives him the real address. One more comment that says, your entire family is toxic as fuck. How dare they take Turk's side? At this point, OP, cut your losses. You said your parents think Turk can do no wrong. That'll never change. They constantly disregard your feelings, which isn't okay. You were broken from witnessing Turk and Jen having sex in your fucking bed. How could your parents think that's okay? What did they expect when you didn't invite your brother to one of the most precious times of your life? I'm proud for you for standing up for yourself and Maria. That takes a lot of self-respect and strength. I'm thrilled for you to have found someone who completes you. Let go. You deserve happiness. As I said though, get out of there. More guilt trips and toxic behavior from your family will ensue otherwise. You deserve better. To which OP responds saying, thank you so much. I think this is the beginning of the end of my relationship with my parents. My parents and I have a pretty rocky relationship since my brother can do no wrong in their eyes. Yet I do almost all wrong in their eyes. They threatened not to come if I didn't invite my brother, and I said, don't bother coming at all. We get another update which happened after the wedding, and OP starts off saying, here's a summary since my original post is pretty long. My brother Turk set me up with my ex. I walked in on him and my ex having sex in my bed, and it broke me. My wife, Maria, was also cheated on, so we understood each other. Maria and I dated for 4 years until we got married a couple of weeks ago. 2 months before my wedding, Turk talked to my parents and got my mum to try and get him invited, but all that did was get my mum uninvited. My dad didn't come because my mum didn't. That's basically it. My wedding was amazing. It went so smoothly. I didn't hear from Turk. He didn't even show up as far as I know. My parents didn't show up and tried to make a scene or anything, which was good. My mum didn't text me, but my dad texted me saying congratulations. I guess Turk talked to my mum because she texted me shortly after my honeymoon, basically begging me to forgive Turk because he's my brother. I didn't text back. It's not worth it. That was a week ago. I haven't gotten any other text from my mum or Turk since. And that's it. The funny part is that Turk is still trying to get our mum to solve his problems, but all of that's behind me now. And obviously we don't know the full ins and outs of those text messages, but in that last one there where it says the mum was basically begging OP to forgive Turk, I mean, she should be apologizing herself for taking his side, and it doesn't sound like any of that happened. It doesn't even sound like she knows she's in shit herself. She didn't even turn up to the wedding, wasn't invited to the wedding. I mean, come on. And you're trying to get forgiveness for him. But all in all, I think that age-old quote about the best revenge is a life well lived. And I think that's the way forward here. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from Soft Korea 8688 from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit, and says, am I the arsehole for saying my in-laws treat me like a live-in maid and wanting to move out? I, female 26, and husband, male 27, live with his parents. His father had some health issues and needed some care, and we agreed to move in and help out. Father-in-law is generally doing better now, but there's still a few things he can't do that my husband does now instead. We've discussed moving out. I want to, but my in-laws are very resistant to the idea, stating that there's plenty of room here and they don't know what they'd do without us, etc. While we don't pay his parents to live here, their decision, we pay for groceries for everyone and several household bills, electricity, internet, TV packages, etc. The house is mortgage free. I also do all the household cleaning and cooking. I arrange and take all their pets to their veterinary appointments too. I do work from home, so this is easier for me, and as I'm able to be flexible. We also pay half of any house modifications and upgrades, as it'd be your house one day. Recently, I've begun to feel resentful of the fact that once they are all done with work, they can come home and relax, whereas I finish work and have to cook and clean and have no help. On the weekends, I spend half of the day cleaning the house while they do what they want. This all came to a head last week. I was really unwell. I felt the worst I've ever felt and wanted nothing more than to sleep. However, once it got around to dinner time, I was awoken by my mother-in-law to ask when I was getting up to make dinner. I didn't want to cause an argument, so I just got up and made dinner for them. But as I was in the kitchen struggling not to pass out, the three of them sat watching a movie, waiting for me to bring in their food. I didn't say anything at first. I waited until my husband and I were alone to bring up my concerns with the lack of help. My husband apologized and offered to help more, which I accepted, but the next day was an exact repeat. I had to drag myself out of bed to cook, and once I bring in their food, my mother-in-law says, "Oh, you look truly awful. Poor you. Oh, by the way, later, would you mind giving everywhere an extra clean? I don't want to get whatever you have." At which point I accused them of treating me like a live-in maid and not caring about me outside of the services I provide for them. I pointed out that I wouldn't be in the communal areas if I hadn't been dragged out to cook, and they could have handled one meal themselves. My husband sat there in silence. He thinks I should have brought it up more carefully, at a time when I wasn't so emotional. I agree that I probably should have, but I was sick and stressed. I want to move out, but husband and in-laws are still against it. Nothing has changed of what they expect from me. I got no apology, just silent treatment from mother-in-law for a couple of days. So, am I the arsehole? OP adds some extra information and says thank you for all the comments. This is my first post, so I'm not sure if this is the best way to address some of the questions, but here we go.
It didn't start off with me doing everything. Before we moved in with my in-laws, my husband and I split everything equally, and that worked great. Once we moved here, I picked up a bunch of the household chores because I work from home and I'm here. It just made sense. Slowly over time, there's just been things added here and there, and that has snowballed into the current situation. I have stood up for myself a few times, but it's an incredibly difficult situation. I'm very aware this is not my house. They are not my parents, and the things I would say to my own parents are not the same I feel I could say to his. I moved across the country before we got married. None of my friends are here. Most of my closest friends are my husband's friends' wives, etc. I didn't have any family nearby. I've always felt as though if I pushed too hard, it would be everyone against me. And I didn't realize before now how toxic of an environment that is. The inheritance of the house isn't something I want or need. This was never supposed to be a long-term thing, and I guess I've just felt pressured to contribute to certain things involving the house because we do live here, and my husband will get the house one day. He's an only child. Overall, it's all been very eye-opening to realize maybe I'm not being as silly as I'm often made to think. All the little things spiral into one big mess, and my husband should be sticking up for me, not contributing to the problem. I've tried talking to him about things several times, and he'll be helpful for a couple of days before resorting back to Mummy's Little Prince. I know I've been needing to get out for a while. I think this is just the push I needed to make such a massive life decision. Thanks, Reddit. And someone asked OP, they said, what exactly is it that your husband does that your father-in-law can't do? OP says, at this point, I'd say he's recovered enough that he should be able to do most things. But it's mostly walking his dogs, anything involving any sort of lifting, nothing that couldn't be done by outside sources if we were to leave. Now, you've already acknowledged in your post that you've got a husband problem. You know, he's not backing you up. He sat there in silence when these people got you up while you was ill to make them dinner. He sat there while she said, oh, can you give the place an extra clean because she doesn't want your germs all over the place. I'll be out of that place ASAP. And you're clearly being taken major advantage of here. That none of this is right anyway, but the fact that they're not even thankful in the slightest bit about any of this, the amount you're doing, you're paying as well, paying for all the groceries, electric, internet, TV packages, all this sort of stuff. And they're not even thankful for it. Not that that would make it okay. But this is definitely a situation, say, look, I'm definitely getting out of here because, you know, this isn't the way that I would want to be living. And the fact that you've got no support around you as well, and you're worried to talk to other people about it because you think that they might gang up on you is a real concern in itself. But in the comments, Cake Eating Rabbit says, not the arsehole, but take a good look at your husband. He knew you were sick. You work too, and he just let you suffer. Even with you telling him, he thought you would just keep serving him. Even if you weren't sick, this arrangement is highly unfair to you. Your husband saves money and doesn't need to lift a finger, and your in-laws save money and don't have to lift a finger. Children living with their parents have chores. These adults are so lazy. I'm angry right now. You deserve so much better. Lizbeth says, not the arsehole, also get out now, with or without your husband. Nothing will change because everyone except you is fine with the situation. No, your husband doesn't care because if he did, he would have done something about it. Pack your bags and leave. Roxy Walker says, so you got married and instead of starting a family of your own, you get to take care of your husband's parents. The exploitation here is outrageous. Sounds almost like you've been set up by all of them because you have to seriously doubt your husband would have stepped up to do everything that's being done if you weren't part of the equation by choice. All of which only benefits his parents. Agreeing to move in was your first mistake, but since that's already done and over with, staying in this situation will be your second mistake, and will have far broader consequences for everything pertaining to your marriage. You need to get your own family started. Staying in the situation you are in will surely end your marriage, because eventually you'll be tired of being the hired help and not a wife with a home. Privacy and money saved up, not the arsehole. G1 Gestalt says, I think you obviously know you're not the arsehole. The question is, what do you do about it? Half the problem, at least half, is actually your husband. If I were you, which I realize I'm not, I'd basically tell him that unless this slave treatment of you stops, you'll move out on your own. After all, what makes you think that this is going to stop after your in-laws are gone, in another decade or so? In your in-laws' eyes, I have a feeling that there's no way that you're going to come out the good guy. You're putting your foot down in their house, and they already seem like completely entitled hosts. This is a make or break situation. Either your husband switches to Team You, or you get your own place and go into couples counseling, which may be a good idea anyway. And on the back of that as well, they keep tempting you with the house. This house might be yours one day kind of thing. Whether that's to try and keep you in this situation or not. How long is someday anyway? I know there's health issues involved here, but it doesn't exactly say what health issues they are. We could be talking years down the road, and even with maybe deteriorating health, so the care becomes even more. And likely OP will be expected to take on that as well. It just sounds like a dire situation. But OP did come in with an update, so let's find out what happened next. This update came 3 months later, and OP says, "I'm not really sure how best to go about updating, but I guess here is as good as any. Firstly, thank you to everyone that reached out. I haven't been able to get back to everyone, but I did read every message. Now for the part you all want. After making this post, I started putting my wages into my own bank account. I removed all of my savings from our joint account and transferred everything from my own safety account, just in case. This turned out to be the best decision because I found out I was pregnant roughly 2 weeks after this post. I've been told at 15 that due to some medical conditions I'd never be able to get pregnant naturally, so it was a complete shock. Once I had a scan to check everything was okay, thankfully it was, we told my in-laws, and this is what gave me the final shove I needed. Immediately names were being thrown around, and my mother-in-law started talking about reducing her hours to part-time/early retirement so she could be around to raise the baby. This rubbed me completely the wrong way. I didn't want anyone else raising my baby. Colours for the nursery and themes etc. were all being discussed constantly, but never with me or my opinions being taken into consideration. And within a week I felt as though I was just an incubator. The final straw happened when myself, my husband's cousin, female 29, and mother-in-law went shopping. I'd been looking at different kind of breast pumps before being told that I would be bottle feeding so everyone could help out. I didn't want to cause a scene in the middle of the shop, so I moved on to outfits. Everything I picked up or looked at was either the wrong color or style or something. I picked out one outfit, which would be my first baby purchase. Mother-in-law snatched it out of my hands before I could pay, telling me that it was the wrong sort of outfit. It wasn't gender neutral enough, and if the baby is a boy, like we're hoping, then it's far too feminine. I didn't need to be told what I could and couldn't dress my own child in, nor did I appreciate the suggestion that they would all prefer a boy, let alone being told how I'd be feeding my child. So I left. I tried talking to my husband on 3 separate occasions and he either made excuses or blew me off entirely. I couldn't handle it anymore. I packed my bags and went to stay with my sister for a week. My husband called me once and asked me to go home. Once. I made it clear I wouldn't be returning to live in that house, that I would raise the baby on my own if he didn't want to leave, but I would not allow my child to be raised in such a toxic environment. As a big surprise to no one, he stayed put. After that, I got spammed with texts in the family group chat, but I left and deleted them all. I started the divorce process and hopefully, as I saved every disgusting message from either my ex or his family about both myself and my baby, they won't get any form of custody. Although since I announced the gender, they've all gone quite silent. I have now a small 3-bedroom house. I'm only renting for now, while I wait for the divorce to finalise, but it's plenty big enough for the 2 of us. My daughter will grow up surrounded by my family and plenty of cousins to play with. The house is pretty bare at the minute, as I only got the keys a couple of days ago, but I have time before she gets here to make sure everything is ready. Thank you again for all your kind words. The situation didn't play out how I'd hoped, but I can't help feeling like it's for the best. And of course, this isn't an ideal situation for OP. It's absolutely heartbreaking that they're having to go through divorce. I'd imagine, the thought of raising a child by yourself is quite a scary thing. But at the same time, I think you're doing the best in a really difficult situation, that you stood up for yourself and for your, which I'm assuming is a daughter, the way they went silent. You're leaning on people around you like your sister and your family as support systems, which, is a great thing. That whole situation when you was in the shops was incredibly infuriating. This person snatching clothes out of your hand and, treating you, like you said, as like an incubator. I can't imagine what would it have been like if you continued to stay in that situation. You'd have had no say, you'd have had no support, and it just sounded incredibly bleak. But well done for you, OP, for standing up for yourself, and like I said, for your child as well. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Put yourself in OP's shoes. How would you feel? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now our next story does come with an update as well from the Am I the A-hole subreddit from girlfriend license throwaway, and says, am I the arsehole for not saving my girlfriend's driving license and refusing to drive her to and from work? My 28 male girlfriend, 26 female, is always late. Always. No matter if it's 5 minutes up the road or catching a plane. Before we get into it, no, she isn't on the autism spectrum, and she doesn't have ADHD or time blindness. She just dawdles all the time. She snoozes her alarm at least 3 times every morning, then lays there going through her social media. Eventually she gets up and takes a long-ass shower, dresses, which takes her forever, and she usually sits wrapped in a towel on her phone, then lingers over her coffee. 9 times out of 10 she's running late for work and ends up speeding to make it on time. Naturally, she's gotten a number of speeding tickets. I've tried to help her, e.g. putting her phone where she can't reach it from bed, so she has to get up to snooze it. But she literally just grabs it and goes back to bed. You try to get her to move her ass and she just digs her heels in and takes even longer. Her response to people calling out her lateness is, better late than dead on time. Anyway, again, she was running even later than normal for work and really had to speed to make it. A week goes by and sure enough, massive speeding fine in the mail. She now has to hand in her driver's license because she's got so many demerit points. She'll be without one for 6 months. Instead of just dealing with it, she tells me, I'll need you to cop this one and say you were driving so I don't lose my license. And of course I refused, telling her she needs to live with the consequences of her actions and maybe she should stop speeding and wake up earlier. This argument went on for a few days until she finally conceded, then proceeds to tell me, well, you'll have to drive me to and from work until I get my license back. And I tell her I won't be doing that. Her work is literally in another direction than my work is from home, and doing so would add another 2 hours of driving per day. She says it shouldn't matter as my work has flexible hours, but I stood my ground and refused, and said she can take public transport. There's literally a bus stop 2 minutes walk from our house, and the bus stop's maybe 5 minutes walk from her work, and it's quite regular. She says she hates public transport and refuses to ride it, so I said then it's Uber for her, or organise a carpool, but bottom line is not my responsibility. She called me an arsehole and has given me the silent treatment. Said a decent boyfriend would go to those lengths for her, and that it's only 6 months. So, am I an arsehole for not saving her license and refusing to drive her to and from work for 6 months? Edit, we live in Brisbane, Australia, for those wondering. Wow, she sounds extremely annoying, but this is just simply consequences of your own actions. And, you know, she's also putting other people in danger on the road at the same time by her being late and then asks you to, you know, take legal consequences for it as well. Absolutely not the arsehole, you know, take public transport. Doesn't even sound sorry about any of this either. And also tried manipulating you with the, you know, a decent boyfriend would go to those lengths for her. But your laundry basket says not the arsehole, but why are you even with this girl? Not only is she refusing to improve herself, but she has also attempted to drag you onto a mess that has legal consequences. She's even blaming you for refusing to take responsibility of her own problem that she seems actively avoiding to work on. Plastic says not the arsehole. She doesn't give a shit about other people's time. She doesn't give a shit about the safety of others on the road. She doesn't give a shit about your driving record if you cop the points. I could go on. She clearly doesn't care about anyone but herself, so why are you with her? Gadget Girl says not the arsehole. Good for you for standing your ground. She made the wrong choices and refused to change her problematic behavior despite many warnings because she just didn't want to make the effort or do things differently. Her choice to speed repeatedly as a solution is 100% on her. Losing your license is supposed to be a punishment for her, not you. Hold firm and continue to push back against the guilt and manipulation. She sounds a bit entitled, and I have a feeling you are in for a fair amount of drama and whining while she adjusts. Matt says not the arsehole. You are doing what any significant other who cares deeply would do, and taking a pretty hard road to do it. You're trying to address the root cause of the issue.
Sounds like you are taking steps to avoid enabling her, which would probably make things worse, and hoping that this wake-up call will have an effect. She is worried about the current consequences and probably getting increasingly frustrated with the extra obstacles being added. You are worried about future potential consequences for her that could be far, far worse. Maybe relieved it's only this. Same situation with two very different perspectives. I can empathize with a lot of what you described as her behavior. Take a look at Consolations in Philosophy by Alain de Botton. The chapter on Seneca, frustration, and expectations helped a lot, and the book as a whole was an all-around good read. Maybe it will help here too. Good luck. The OP does give us a couple of little updates the next day and says, "Wow, I wasn't expecting such a response, and definitely not everyone being on my side. She told me all her friends think I'm the arsehole, which is a big part of why I came here in the first place. After seeing the responses here, I messaged a few of them, and the ones she actually did contact said not the arsehole. As for why I'm still with her, I'm starting to question that myself. I've not been really happy with her the last few months, and this is starting to make me question the entire relationship." The day after that, OP says, "So today I asked her she look at the train and bus timetables, and she hit me with, paraphrasing, 'Oh my god, you seriously aren't going to help me? You really expect me to catch public transport, blah blah blah.' Reflecting on this and past behavior and her attitude towards the whole thing, I'm going to break up with her. Thank you everyone for your help." And I gotta say, I couldn't see it going any other way in the end on this story. You know, there was a chance of them reconciling, but her whole attitude towards the whole thing that OP explained, you know, just put me on edge the whole time. I just couldn't look past that. And part of me was thinking, how is she like earning any money with the amount of tickets she's getting? I mean, you get fined and all sorts in the UK. I'm sure that's elsewhere as well, in Australia. And I was wondering how it's sort of like affecting them financially as a couple, but I'm not sure if they was at that point in their relationship. I mean, they was only there together for 6 months, I think it said. So, but wow, what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from Critical Carry 6618 and says, "Would I be the arsehole if I exposed my neighbor, 42 male, to his wife out of retaliation? My boyfriend, 28 male, and I, 24 female, recently went on a trip. My boyfriend surfs and I surf a little. I've done it for a few years now, but don't get the time and location to progress a lot. Anyway, it's embarrassing, but the board hit me in the face. I developed bruising around under my eye and a few cuts and scrapes. It fortunately wasn't super horrific looking, but when we got back home, my neighbor, 42 male, saw me and asked about it while I was checking my mail. I told him what happened. He joked maybe my boyfriend gave me the bruise and I'm just too obsessed with him to care. I told him that's disrespectful. Just kept it short and terminated the interaction. He goes on laughing and I walk away. My boyfriend confronted him on his behavior and told him not to approach me or talk to me. He nodded and agreed and apologized. The next day we get police doing a wellness check on me because of an anonymous report. I just know it has to be the neighbor. They wanted to make sure no domestic abuse was going on. They questioned me and my boyfriend. Had to show them GoPro footage to try and prove we went surfing. 42 male has been super flirtatious with me in the past, and every time my boyfriend is away, travels for work, he seems to take note of this and starts trying to run into me more. Catch me on my runs, etc. He has said inappropriate things to me that a man with a wife really shouldn't be saying. This is just for context. I have proof for some of his inappropriate behavior because he tried to add me on Instagram and DM me some inappropriate text while he was supposedly drunk. Would I be the arsehole if I show his wife those? I guess it's petty because I'm retaliating, but I just hate the guy now, and maybe he truly will stay away after that. I don't want to start a back and forth war though. I feel unsafe during the times my boyfriend is away for work. It was nice to honestly just vent this here. Think about doing it. Maybe I should leave it at that, but let me know." Edit for some clarification based on comments. My neighbor, 42 male, has a history of flirting with me and saying inappropriate things. I can give examples of what I mean by that if needed, but it feels unnecessary. It's been almost 1 year of us living there and similarly long with his slowly escalating behavior. My partner has confronted him before, a few weeks prior to this scenario, when the drunk DMs happened. During this first confrontation, 42 male was told to stay away from me, to not approach me or talk to me. So my boyfriend confronted my neighbor again for a second time. This incident was to firmly remind him again of what they had previously discussed, that he is to be keeping a distance from me. It was my boyfriend keeping him in check and giving him a final warning. It was not a sudden or new reaction after the conversation about the bruise. I strongly feel he called the police out of spite, not suspected DV. Most likely it's spite against my partner. My neighbor has made the comment of me being too obsessed with my boyfriend many times over, and it is largely because he is aware we have a good relationship which he has somewhat stalked, online and offline. So this joke wasn't a one-off harmless remark. It's been an ongoing absurd irritation he's been voicing in various ways for months. According to him, my neighbor, I talk about my boyfriend too much during our conversations, which he has told me he doesn't like. I do that a little bit on purpose to spoil his attempts to steer the conversation with me towards inappropriate territory. All these conversations are not consensual. They occur when he finds a way to cross paths with me. He initiates and I spend the whole time trying to leave. I have been doing so by talking about my boyfriend, because for a while it seemed to work and turn him off. Now I think it just angers him. I just straight up walk away now, with politeness out the window. And OP put the update within the same post, so a lot of the comments are replying to both at the same time, so I'm not going to cover any comments just yet. But what sounded really worrying to me in this one, it sounded like it was almost like escalating behavior, that the fact that you used to talk about your boyfriend to sort of like brush him off and get him away from you, and he seemed to used to accept that, but now it's turning to anger. Whenever you talk about your boyfriend, he gets angry about it and says you talk about him too much. A commenter which OP replies to, Southern Dig, says, "Not the arsehole, but honestly the first part didn't seem bad. Your joke, too obsessed to care if he hit you or not, sounds like Stockholm Syndrome. Then your boyfriend threatening him not to talk to you ever again sounds like a typical abusive, controlling boyfriend. I probably would have called the police on a wellness check too under those circumstances from his perspective. But the other stuff you mentioned makes it seem like he didn't actually care that much, so yeah, sure, show his wife." Lev replies to that and says, "The boyfriend getting upset would have been a huge red flag for me as well. OP, the guy is wrong and a creep and probably deserves to be called out for the sake of actual domestic violence victims. Please don't do it over this. The last thing you want to do is punish someone for trying to help bring light to a domestic violence situation, even if they are wrong." OP says, "Unfortunately, my neighbor knows there was no domestic violence. He did that to give us, or maybe specifically my boyfriend, trouble because my boyfriend confronted him, telling him to not approach me or talk to me anymore." The comment he made about my boyfriend is another example of the many absurd comments he makes, and the reason for the confrontation by my boyfriend was because he has a history of approaching me and saying inappropriate things. Another comment goes along the same lines, saying, him worrying about abusive behavior is a good thing, but also his behavior is creepy, so everyone sucks here, to which OP says, "I assure you, he's not worried or suspecting domestic violence. The comment he made about me being too obsessed with my boyfriend is because he knows we have a good relationship, which he, my neighbor, makes the comments like this about often, then tries to laugh or pass it off as just a joke. He only called the police because my boyfriend told him to not approach me. Something that has to be reinforced because he's made tons of inappropriate comments to me in the past." OP does share the so-called drunken text, which is a lot of gibberish. It says Bella, Bo, Bella, and a lot of that, and says, "You said you don't model. Okay, then what is this? Just jokes," and then like a little kissing face, and then says, "Can you imagine you blushing like you do? Don't be mad, take a joke. So you're without your boyfriend, I guess." OP continues and says it's mostly nonsense, repetitive like this, on and on. A photo of his drink glass on his balcony, and until eventually he said he's sorry. I had to scribble out my name, which OP did in their screenshot, and then says, "I didn't do the whole conversation, most of it's gibberish, and he's Portuguese, so some of it was Portuguese gibberish." OP then adds to their post saying, "Clarification, my neighbor has never had my phone number or contact information. We don't communicate. He searched for me online and admitted doing so because I had mentioned when I moved here that I recently graduated from art school, do some paintings on the side and sometimes sell a piece here and there. He claims he tried to look for a website to see my art, but found my LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram instead. My name is published online in a few places because of my work, a recognition award I received while in university, and photos from my Instagram have been published too, so they're credited with my username. All this to say, he put it in his own work and found me. I did not give him my socials. Some people are saying that we are texting and communicating with each other. You have misunderstood. He messaged me on Instagram one time. I never responded to those messages. It was just him sending in text after text throughout the night and apologizing and saying he had been drunk. I have since blocked him. I shared this in my post because it is my only concrete proof that he's been flirting with me. Everything else transpired in person. Clarification. When the confrontation mentioned above in my original text occurred, my boyfriend was there unloading the vehicle, including the surfboards. We have a very long private driveway. I was in my boyfriend's line of sight but not within earshot, until he heard the neighbor laughing loudly and me walking back. My boyfriend had also previously spoken to 42 male neighbor a few weeks before when the drunk DM happened, mentioned in the edit section above. So when my boyfriend heard the laughing and saw my face coming up the drive, he came down and reiterated to the neighbor to the effect of, "Come on, man. We discussed this. You need to stop walking over here. I'm warning you," that kind of thing. He was calm, measured, and controlled. Firm, but not aggressive. Then OP comes in with their detailed update, which says, "First, thank you for everyone for voicing your opinions. I appreciate the most those who reached out to me personally and tried to view the situation from my point of view, with my safety in mind. I will not be retaliating in any way. What I want is him to leave me alone, and I'm not going to achieve that by lighting a fire under their marriage, which I'm sure is already suffering, even without my involvement. I would have maybe been more inclined to be more transparent with his wife if I didn't live next door, had some anonymity, and he didn't have access to me, which it feels like he does. If I had answers to a lot of what ifs, but I don't. I think it will make my life a nightmare, especially when my boyfriend is away and I'm living alone for weeks at a time. Writing this post itself has been cathartic enough. To be honest, now that I've come down from my anger and feel more clear-headed, plus having talked with my partner and read all these messages, as many as I can, it's not a good idea to tangle myself up in this by going to his wife to try and make a point. I don't think it will give me what I want, which is for the man to never speak to me again. I also don't know how the wife, 31 female, will react. From the 2 interactions I've had with her, she was very short with me and difficult to engage. She's been from the start. I originally tried to introduce myself to her when I moved here and saw them standing at the foot of our driveway while we were moving in. But 42 male took over the conversation and was the more friendlier one. It is for these points I held back taking the DMs to the wife earlier. In the heat of the police call and some girlfriends egging me on to do it in the moment, I wanted to retaliate because I felt fed up and unfair, emotionally drained, but on reflection, guys, it's just not worth it for my safety and peace to inform her. I'm sure she has some idea of his behaviors. He seems like a person who wears his frustration and emotions on his sleeve. Also, his eyes focus on my face and parts of my body when he talks to me is always very obvious. I'm sure this is a compulsion that he is exhibiting all the time. She has surely caught him doing it with other women. The reason I took to Reddit with a desire to finally talk to his wife after the police check was because to me his behavior, if he made the call, was an escalation of what he's been building up all year. He has been inappropriate all year, but to call the police? I was shocked to have them show up, and it was very frustrating to sit there and cooperate with the report. I also don't see how this would help a domestic violence victim. I feel like it would make things worse for them. I'm not a DV victim, but the police experience was traumatic for me. I hope it helps real victims, but I just don't see how it does. Also, I understand I will never know if my neighbor made the call or his wife did, or even someone else. Aside from the 2 of them, I have no suspects. No one else interacted with us, and the call happened the next day, so we'd only be back for 1 night. For those who say it's fair for him to have called it in, I also personally did not feel at the moment that my neighbor showed me the concerns someone would have if they suspected domestic violence. He should have given me a heads up, tried to ask me when my boyfriend might be out of the house, etc. You know, like a genuinely concerned individual. Would you spring a surprise police on a domestic violence victim who lives with their abuser? From his comment to his reaction, he was nothing but crass, rude, and patronizing during our interaction. He was just getting some kind of satisfaction in trying to start a childish spat with me because he enjoys trying to get a rise out of me since his flirting no longer gets him the reaction he craves, because he knows our pleasantries have soured. There wasn't any concern there. He was smirking, and the behavior leading up to this incident, I feel, cannot be separated from the scenario. If it was just an isolated interaction with a neighbor followed by a police check, I would understand. I would not be making this post. Okay, this is getting long. Hope this suffices for an update for now. Thanks again, guys. And there was a couple more comments after that update, which Opie replied to. So Millennium Caveman says, not the arsehole, but you should check in with the wife and make sure she's okay. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got some behavior going on behind closed doors that keeps her disempowered. Be her friend, you can have each other's backs if it ever gets to that point. It really does sound like he's got some spiteful manipulation going on. If he's that entitled to get you to cheat on your boyfriend, I'm honestly concerned for his dynamic with his wife. Opie says, lots of people have suggested this in the comments, but unfortunately I do not know how to approach her, let alone be friends. I feel like I may not be the right person to check on her. Initially from day one, when I saw them both while we were moving in, I approached them to say hello. I tried directing my attention at his wife and greeted her first, but she was difficult to engage, and 42 Male was the open, friendlier one who took the conversation. Despite my attempts to redirect back to her, she didn't seem interested. I've tried to bring up his wife to 42 Male when we have our run-ins. It's one of my tactics to keep the conversation appropriate and prevent his flirting, but he shuts down when I mention her, asks about her, even simple comments. And one time he actually became so irritated and frustrated. When I called him out on that, he said he doesn't like it when I talk about his wife. You always bring her up. Then apologized and said he's just in a bad mood due to something. I got really weirded out by the sudden shift in his mood, a flash of anger. I terminated the conversation and made an excuse to go back to my house. I have a lot of hesitancy to approach her, that's why I haven't. I always back out. And then there was a comment just expressing, their fear for OP and, to document everything, don't interact with him or his wife in any way, and, just document. And if you do want to get a restraining order one day and make things a lot more easier, even though it's just a bit of paper and it doesn't actually stop him in the end. And OP added on to that one that they have got cameras installed and they're going to be considering window alarms, etc. But how would you deal with this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit from guard specific 2058 and says, am I the arsehole for cancelling my birthday party because my parents cut my sister a slice of my custom made cake the night before my party when she cried for it. My sister, 11 female, is the miracle golden child. She always gets what she wants whenever she wants. My parents are always trying to please her and make her happy. They always make a big effort for her on her birthday and do whatever that she asks for, but then they can barely remember mine, and they are always conveniently broke. This year I wanted to enjoy my birthday, so I babysat and even mowed lawns to make this possible. My birthday was a few days ago and the party was scheduled for the day after. I've been planning for weeks and invited all my friends. I bought the food, snacks and drinks and picked up my custom made cake, which I was really excited about. It was just perfect. The night before the party, I noticed that my cake, which was in the fridge, had a huge slice missing. When I asked my dad, he shrugged and nonchalantly said that my sister was crying for it and it was just a small piece. My friends wouldn't notice. I yelled at him, asking why he would do something like that, and it wasn't even bought with his money, and that my sister could have waited for tomorrow. This made him angry, and he went on a tirade about how I think I'm an adult because of my stupid party, implying at the fact that I did everything myself and did not ask them for anything. I ended up calling it off because I was not able to change the location last minute, as I didn't have the means to, and I was so hurt. I didn't want to host it at home anymore. One of my friends told me that calling it off was an overreaction, and I could have just gone through with doing it at home, rather than cancelling just hours before. Now this is an incredibly sad story. Look, you're not the arsehole in any choice you make. You need to do what's best for you in this situation. The only thing that I really dislike, and I dislike it for you, is that you're missing out on your party. But at the same time, is it going to be the party you want if you're having it at home? Your parents are there. I'm assuming your little sister will be there and, get involved. And, there's a chance she's going to ruin it or something like that. And I'm always like, why do parents act like this? Push their children away. And, when you get older and you decide to move out and want little to do with them anymore, they're going to be all shocked Pikachu face about it. Can you imagine seeing someone's custom or any birthday cake in a fridge and just thinking, yeah, we'll just take a slice. That doesn't really matter. The attitude of it, man. And in a roundabout way, not justifying the behavior at all here, it's sad for this 11-year-old at the same time as well. Because she's being brought up like this. She's being brought up to be enabled to get whatever she wants in life, and she's potentially going to grow up with a really bad attitude, which just isn't a great thing, is it? But not taking away from what OP's going through, I don't blame you for whatever you choose. I just find it really sad that you're going to be missing out on your birthday party with your friends and an enjoyable experience for you. And I just hope that there's some way in the future that you do something for yourself with your friends that hopefully makes up for your birthday. But Signal Reflection says not the arsehole, but next year see if you can have your party at someone else's house. Don't invite your family. Next time something like this happens, just show the cake the way it is. Let people ask and let your parents answer. Potato Soup says cancelling the entire thing may have been a bit disproportional to missing out on the opportunity to present a pristine cake, but you do you, I guess. Either way, not the arsehole. Your parents missed a valid opportunity to teach no. They aren't doing you, your sister, or them any favours here. Learning how to say no is absolutely necessary in life. Instead, they've reinforced a belief your feelings and autonomy do not matter, and that your sister can get her selfish way by having a tantrum. 11 is more than old enough to be told, no, that isn't mine or yours. We don't get to help ourselves to things that are not ours, just because we want to. Sleepless says not the arsehole, that is really shitty of your dad. You didn't have to be a kid to enjoy and value your birthday celebration. That was your cake, and I would have been depressed about it too. I wouldn't invite your parents or your sister to your birthday parties in the future. Which Nervous replies and says, they are going to raise an entitled brat. Put this way back in your memory bank for when the brat will be too busy to help out when they are older and they start to guilt trip you. That's a hard no. You favoured her, now she gets to take care of you. Click goes the phone. I'm sorry they are favouring her, and it's easy to see why you're so disappointed for your 16th. Best wishes on finishing school, getting out of the house and making a found family. Not the arsehole. I can just imagine the disappointment when opening that fridge and seeing a slice of that cake taken. It's just goes through their minds, man. But I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from Complaint Helpful 7442 and says, am I the arsehole for leaving my husband for him and his parents' rude behavior? And before we do get into the story, I just want to give you a warning. It does contain death of a parent, emotional abuse, mentions of cancer as well. So if you do want to skip the story, timestamps are always down in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. And it says, I, 25 female, have been married to 24 male for 4 years. The first 2 years of our marriage, we were stationed in North Carolina, but have since moved to Texas where his family lives. Since moving to Texas, I've gotten to know my in-laws, and what I know is that they are all disrespectful. All of them, almost as if it's hereditary. Here's a few examples. I'm Korean and my husband's family is Mexican. My sister-in-law tried bulgogi, which is beef marinated in a sweet sauce, and gagged in front of me when she took a bite of it, spitting it out and complaining that she didn't expect it to taste like that. Every time we go out to eat, my in-laws will run the waiters back and forth, asking for special requests and refills. But if they don't like the food or they forget one item that they ordered, they will literally tip the waiter change from out of their pocket. I'm talking like $5 on a $120 bill, even if their service was amazing. If we go into a store or go to the gym and it's about to close, they will be the last people to leave. And not last, as in they close 9 PM and they are leaving at 9 PM. Last as in they close at 9 PM and we're barely walking out the door at 9:15. Every time an instance like this happens, my husband and I get into it. They usually end with my husband making excuses like that's just the way my family is, or I don't care what other people think and neither should you. My last straw was when my mother was unexpectedly diagnosed with cancer. I flew back to my home in Korea to take care of her for a while when she was getting her chemo. I stayed for 2 weeks before needing to go back to my home in Texas for work obligations, and can you guess who never once reached out to me the whole time I was there? Yep, my in-laws. Not once did I receive any call or text message. Not even when I came back did the topic of my mum come up. My husband told me he told them about my mum, so I don't understand why no one could have just checked up on me or at least called my mum. The next time we saw my in-laws was the next day I came back from Korea. They were over for dinner. I waited to see what they were going to talk about, and as they continued discussing what cows they wanted to buy, I left the room and didn't come out for the rest of the night.
When they left, my husband angrily confronted me, telling me how disrespectful I was. I honestly didn't even have it in me anymore to fight. I just packed my bags and booked the next flight to Korea. All my husband's and in-laws' messages and phone calls are being ignored because I just cannot stand their disrespectful behavior. And to hear my husband calling me disrespectful was enough. Maybe I'm overreacting, but honestly, this behavior is exhausting. I deal with it every time we go out and I am done. I don't want to be surrounded by people like this, and I'd rather focus my attention on my mum. Am I the arsehole? And we're going to start in the comments with Reward Hungry, who says, first, beef bulgogi is delicious. Second, it seems like your resentment and frustration had been steadily increasing over time. You expressed your frustration. Nothing changed or excuses were made. The reaction to your mum's diagnosis is the straw that broke the camel's back. How was your husband when you went to Korea for 2 weeks? Not the arsehole. Eva says sometimes the little things add up and become big things. Your husband calling you disrespectful is not cool. Go take care of your mum. Just also be aware that any debt your husband incurs while you're still married is half yours according to US law. So you may want some kind of legal separation or divorce file to prevent him trying to stick you with some crappy credit card debt. Not the arsehole for having standards around behavior and for tipping adequately. That's just human decency. I wish more people did. Chevely says, while they do sound a bit disrespectful, if this is all that's wrong with them over a period of 4 years, I think you could do a lot worse. Speaking from personal experience, you also amp up the worst situations in your mind to make them even worse. As a European, I have a hard time gauging how bad tipping out of pocket is. I rarely, if ever, tip anybody for doing their job. I'm probably as likely to tip a waiter as you are to tipping your mechanic or supermarket employee. Sis Era says everyone sucks here. They were most definitely disrespectful, and your husband was dismissive of you feeling disrespected, but you played passive-aggressive games and never once spoke up for yourself. You don't get to be mad that other people don't change their behavior towards you if you don't actually speak up. So, you'll suck. Neclectasai says, who the fuck doesn't like bulgogi? Honestly, not the arsehole at all. They're clearly the kind of people who can dish it out but can't take it. They want to not care what anyone else thinks of how they act, but then they get their panties in a twist over you leaving the room. What entitled children? And the person telling you that you're overreacting is out of their mind. You have every right to be fed up with their behavior and refuse to tolerate it. You've put up with it for long enough as it is, and you've made efforts to find some kind of middle ground by speaking to and eventually arguing with your husband. None of them have displayed any respect for you or your feelings, including him. Why would you want to stick around for that? Also, I hope your mother is doing better. Now, first off, I've never tried bulgogi before, but it does sound very interesting. A lot of people in the comments saying it's absolutely amazing. And I'm also extremely sorry to hear about what your mum's going through and what you're going through at the same time at the moment. And there was a fair few comments on this one saying OP, need to speak up for themselves, etc. And I know it's something I say often, but as I was reading it and going through it, and obviously I don't know their full relationship, but the question that always goes through my mind is, what does this person bring into your life? It sounds like you're being treated as second best in your relationship. When you're being disrespected, you're being told, that's just how they are, but family. And obviously I don't know the full dynamics of this family and how much they communicate and all this sort of stuff, because some of the sentences, like, not once did I receive any call or text message from the in-laws, and they didn't phone to like call your mum or whatever. Again, I don't know the full relationship. It doesn't sound like you got a massive bond with them anyway. Again, I'm not trying to excuse any kind of behavior, because I find their behavior totally disrespectful, just like yourself. I know if any of my sister-in-laws, their family is ill, and next time I see them, I'm definitely asking them, or I'm contacting them to ask them how they're doing and how their family member is, etc. And if there's any way that we can sort of help them and all that kind of thing. But the fact this is being turned around on you sounds like time and time again. And like one of the comments says, it sounds like it's been building up for a while. But it gets turned around on you every time, and you're the one that's being called disrespectful. I can't blame you for feeling the way you do. OP adds a reply to someone on this one and says, thank you for all your responses, those that agree with me and those that don't, because it allows me to see other sides of the situation besides my own. I just wanted to clarify a few things real quickly. 1, I did not divorce my husband. I'm staying in Korea for the time being.
2, for those of you asking, my husband did not call me while I was in Korea the first time. Any conversations we had was initiated by me. He did not reach out to me, nor did my in-laws. So OP does update the post and says to clear things up a little. The situation happened over a month ago, and I've been in Korea ever since. My husband and I did not get divorced, but we had talked things out and decided I needed space to take care of my mum first, and whatever problems that we had can be discussed at a better time. As for my in-laws, I haven't spoken to them since. I really wanted to work things out after reading a few of the comments saying my in-laws' behavior is not the fault of my husband. I thought that maybe I was being too judgy over behavior that I'm not used to. That maybe they're not all bad, but they just have a few faults. As for my mum, she hasn't been doing so well. She's been losing a lot of weight because she says that everything she eats tastes like metal and she's been in constant pain. It's gotten so bad that she can't even get out of bed by herself. On top of that, I'm having a tough time watching my mum struggling and feeling like I don't have anyone on my side during this time, especially since my husband's family still hasn't reached out to me. Last week, my husband reached out to me telling me that his mum had tonsillitis and was going in for surgery. Reluctantly, I reached out to her and told her that I'll be praying and wishing her a safe surgery. I even had the hospital's gift shop send flowers up to her room because I couldn't be there. I figured that maybe they just weren't the type of people to reach out and that I should put whatever happened in the past. My husband expressed how grateful she was and how happy she was to have received the flowers, hoping that I was doing okay in Korea. Unfortunately, I wasn't. Fast forward to a week later, my mother's condition had gotten so bad that she lost her battle with cancer and passed away. I told my husband what happened, and he was in just as much of a shock as I was. He said that he was sorry, telling me how much of a good mother she was and how happy she must have been to have me by her side during her last few days. We were preparing to get the funeral done in the next few days, so I asked my husband what day he could be here. He was hesitant on the phone, saying that he felt bad for my mother and all, but he also had his mother to worry about. How he needed to be there for her just like I was there for mine. I was in complete shock and just hung up the phone. He is missing my mother's funeral to take care of his mother who had tonsillitis surgery a week ago. Unbelievable. Any chances I ever thought of giving him was completely out the window. It was insane to believe that he felt like his mum recovering from a minor surgery was more important than the death of my mum and his mother-in-law. I'm not saying that tonsillectomy isn't important, but I'm sure she'll recover just fine, as it's a very common surgery, and the downtime is 1 to 2 weeks, and it's already been a week. As of now, I've hired a lawyer to discuss divorce, and I'm going to therapy. I plan on going back to the US to end things with my husband, quit my job and take my stuff back with me after my mum's funeral. As for his family, I haven't heard from them. Shocking, right? Whatever, I'm just glad to be done with him and his family, and I'll be able to focus on myself and my mental health. And a comment calls OP out on saying, that it's not a dangerous surgery or whatever, and says, having a tonsil out as an older person is pretty dangerous, and people do die from it. And OP says, yes, I understand that now, that it is not minor, but she is fine and already back to her job working. I should have mentioned that. And for me, as I was feeling whilst reading the story, I may be right or wrong. As I said, I don't know the full ins and outs of the story. I'm just going for how I was feeling whilst I was reading it. It just always felt like a build-up of this behavior throughout a period of time. That this has been building up to this explosive point, basically. Always being treated like second best and, not considered by people that should be supportive towards you. I totally get why you've totally checked out of that. And once again, I just want to say I'm sorry for what you've been through, especially with your mum. A lot of that hit home for me, talking about your mother's symptoms and everything tasting like metal and not eating and losing weight. And, I saw it with my dad, and I had a huge support system around me and lots of people helping with my dad. So I can't imagine what you've gone through. And that absolutely breaks my heart for you. Take time for yourself to grieve in a healthy way, of course. And much love to you. Anyway, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. And this story comes from Cute Classic 2954 and says, do I, 28 female, need to worry about my boyfriend's 24 male friendship with his professor, 25 female? And it does come with an update as well. My boyfriend, 24 male, became friends with his former professor, 25 female, sometime last year. I don't know what to make of it. They seem to be friendly and talk consistently every week, and from what he tells me, it's usually very surface level. Sometime last year after the course ended, my boyfriend, his professor, and some of his male classmates went somewhere to eat together. My boyfriend brought up that he was going to be attending an event, a plastic modeling show, and his professor showed interest and invited herself to the event and asked if she could stay at his Airbnb with his friends. My boyfriend and his friends were all okay with it. I unfortunately couldn't attend the event, but from what my boyfriend told me, he and a few of his friends met up at their Airbnb. That same day, his professor comes to my boyfriend's Airbnb and tagged a few of her girlfriends along. I believe they all stayed in the same place. The next day, they go to the event, went to a bar afterwards and got drinks. A lot of them, except my boyfriend, got pretty drunk, and my boyfriend took the liberty of being the designated driver for his professor and her friends. His professor won some model kit from the event, and even in a drunken state, asked my boyfriend if he could stay up with her to work on the kit together. From what my boyfriend tells me, nothing else happened that night. After the event, everyone from that group created a group chat and they continued to plan and talk about future events together. Since then, my boyfriend and his friends had met up with his professor and got to meet his professor's fiancée at the anime convention, and it sounded like they all got along well. His professor continues to express interest in other events, and it sounds like she may be attending another event with my boyfriend and his friends in the near future. I trust my boyfriend and don't think he is hiding anything from me. Honestly speaking, I think it's hard for me to understand their friendship as it's his professor. I've had a conversation with him on this and he's let me know that I have nothing to worry about. I would like to hear others' opinions and see what you all think of this friendship. Is this something I need to be concerned about, or is it really nothing? Thank you all. Edit: the professor was my boyfriend's former professor. She's classified as an adjunct faculty and works as an accountant as a full-time job, which explains why she is a young professor. My boyfriend has not graduated college yet and is still a student at his university. So Happy Procrastinator says to the OP, you should go to one of these events with them. I don't understand why you are not being part of it. OP says, I do struggle with social anxiety, so it makes me uncomfortable to be sharing a space with a lot of unknown people. I'm hoping to go to the next event though, since it's local. Happy replies to that and says, just go. I experience social anxiety too, especially because I'm an introvert. But when I go to social events, it turns out it's never as bad as I expected, especially if I go with someone who cares about me. You need to go to see their interaction. OP responds saying thank you, and I agree. I've also learned that it's not as bad as it seems, and if it is, you always have the choice to leave. My boyfriend has reassured me that he will be there with me, so I feel better about that. Altruistic 2 says, I don't like it at all. Not so much from his side, but from hers. Her social interest and engagement with students is grossly inappropriate and unprofessional. Staying at their Airbnb, getting drunk and staying up with them when she stays with them, and then continued socializing. She has no concerns for boundaries. Sounds like she's absolutely loving it. This isn't just a female friend, it's his teacher, presumably not an actual professor because that's too young. I don't know how long his course is, but if it's for a long time yet, I'd ask him to keep friendship at a minimum. OP says I'm totally with you. I'm also quite confused of her choice of friends. I'm not sure why of all places does she choose to share an Airbnb with a former student and to be drunk with them. She's classified as an adjunct faculty, so she is a professor but is part-time. She works full-time as an accountant. The whole situation feels weird to me. Individual says you seem kinda hung up on the professor part, but if he's not in one of her classes now and won't have to take one of her classes again, then it's not that crazy. If a kindergartner is 6 and his teacher is 7, I wouldn't be too surprised they might become friends. That is not to say I think it is okay, because I don't. Everything could be above board, but I'd also be a little uncomfortable if I were you. How can someone be a professor at 25? OP says, yeah, the fact that she was his professor is what is weird to me. Like, this is just not a friend he made in class. This is a person who held a higher position above him. I currently work in higher education, so this situation just strikes me as uncomfortable for sure. And then says about the adjunct faculty. So around a month and a week later, OP updates and says my boyfriend had a more of a heart-to-heart talk regarding his teacher, and he recognizes that it crossed some of my boundaries. He believes that she may be behaving the way she does because when she hangs out with her fiancé's friends, she gets bored with them and may possibly be seeking attention from other people. Several weeks later, my boyfriend had a conversation with his college instructor regarding their friendship and told her how I didn't feel comfortable with their friendship and how he thinks they should keep communication at a minimum. She brought up how she understands because her fiance also had an issue with how she chose to share an Airbnb with my boyfriend. She mentions to my boyfriend that she sees him as a brother and that's why she feels really comfortable with him, but that she will try to respect my boyfriend's wishes of keeping conversations at a minimum. Well, even after that talk, she continues to still message my boyfriend weekly on random life updates. Because she is also part of my boyfriend's chat and Discord, one of his friends invited her to attend another plastic modeling show. It occurred recently, and dinner. Since she accepted the invitations, I chose to attend as well, so that I could personally meet her. The dinner occurred first, and it was very uncomfortable because she practically ignored me the entire night. When she joined us at the table, she greeted my boyfriend but didn't say anything to me. Even my boyfriend noticed and got annoyed, but then introduced us. She got increasingly drunk throughout the night and was saying random stuff about my boyfriend to his friends like, he could have been the best student in my class, but it's because he missed some assignments, and boyfriend's name gave me a 5-star review on Rate My Professor. She ended up not going to the show, but my boyfriend had a chat with his guys and they told him that they want to respect my feelings too and make it a guys' night next time. I would like to hear others' opinions and see if you also think she is acting suspicious. Someone just comes right out and says to OP, she wants to have sex with your boyfriend, she's crossing major boundaries, and has he stopped the conversation with her? And OP says, I wouldn't be surprised if that is her intention because there's definitely some shady people out there. I agree she is crossing some professional and personal boundaries, and I think it's quite unusual behaviour for any teacher to act like that. Yes, he has stopped communicating with her. She was consistently messaging him until last week, so hopefully she got the memo. Now firstly, I'd never heard of a plastic modelling show. I looked that up and that looks cool as hell. And I got to say, I'm not very clued up on all this sort of stuff, but it did feel very, very inappropriate to me, that whole relationship, and the fact that the first time you meet her, she ignores you and starts treating you in a specific way. It kind of said it all to me, really. I feel like she was crossing boundaries and, she confirmed yours and my suspicions when you finally met her. And when she said she looks at the boyfriend as like the brother, I was like, hold on. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And our next story comes from user father-in-law said no from the relationships subreddit and says, my girlfriend 25 and I 27 male have been together for 5 years. Today I asked her father 59 for his blessing to post her on the coming weekend and he said no. Carl equals girlfriend's father because Carl the llama. Some background, we've been in a relationship for 5 years and living together for 4. And this is the best, most satisfying relationship I've had in all my life. She works in the healthcare industry and her kindness towards those in need and less privileged than her is what drew me to ask her out in the first place. In the last 4 years between us, there have been some little fights and only one big fight. The fight happened in October 2014. She planned for a lunch with Carl, which I had to miss because of work-related emergency. He called me later that night saying that I don't show him the respect he deserves, and I'm always trying to get out of family events because I don't want to be around him. Which is not true because half of the planning and organising on his birthday was on me, and it was a big event. In the morning, I told girlfriend about his call, and she brushed it off as him being intoxicated. The next weekend, when we went to her parents' place for family dinner, Carl was extremely hostile towards me, but I kept silent about it. Until he said I should not have missed the lunch. Every other Sunday is family dinner at her folks' place and I rarely miss it, so I didn't think it was a big deal. I apologized to him and said that I would make up for it in some way. At the next dinner, I bought a bunch of smart wearable accessories for him because girlfriend suggested he was interested in them. He refused to accept the gift, and when I insisted, he walked out saying he needs some air. I had no clue what was going on, and girlfriend's mum was mortified, apologizing to me over and over again for Carl's behavior. When we got home, I asked girlfriend if there was something going on, which she was not telling me. At first, she tried to brush it off, but then she said it was my fault for not seeing that her father was not interested in being buddies and wanted my respect, not friendship. This was a complete surprise to me because I never really thought of him as anything more than her father. We would just watch the game together sometimes and chat about it later.
but that was the extent of our social interaction. Girlfriend said I need to earn his respect, and I told her I had done nothing wrong. That's when the fight started, but a few days later, Carl called me and said he liked the watch and other accessories. That's his way of declaring truce, I guess. After that, I was always extra careful never to miss any event with them. Last June, girlfriend's mother died, and it was an incredibly difficult time for everyone. I tried to be as supportive towards the whole family as I could. I cut down my work hours to spend more time with them. Girlfriend and I started cooking the family dinner at his place because she thought it would be better for him to see the house alive with people again. We made it an every week event for a while just to spend more time with him. Multiple times we made extra effort to host family events, and once we even flew his elder sister over for his birthday. I thought he would warm up to me a little, but I guess I was wrong. Which brings us to today. Girlfriend is away for the week on work-related stuff, so I planned the whole proposal. I was going to decorate an apartment like a planetarium with stars and planets and write, "Will you marry me?" in the stars. It's from Friends, which she is obsessed with. I wanted to start the preparations with his blessing because that way he would feel good about me asking him first and he'd feel included also. I planned a lunch with him for today to ask for his blessing. I told him how much respect I had for him and that I wish one day I could be as good as a father as he was. And when I asked for his blessing for the marriage, he blew up. He was absolutely livid, saying that her daughter deserves a better man and that he never really liked me much and I'd always hoped the relationship would end. He said all the ass kissing I was doing last year had showed that I just wanted to appear like a good man to girlfriend and didn't mean any of that. I was so shocked because this is not how I expected it to go at all. I left him still spewing hate, told him and his wife everything, but they're just as shocked as I am. I spent the day at their place and got home about 2 hours ago. Not sure how to proceed now or even what to do. Should I tell girlfriend that her father said no? Should I proceed as if nothing had happened? But now I'm drinking and playing video games. What should I do, Reddit? Note, I've kept a lot of details intentionally vague because girlfriend and her siblings are active on Reddit. Now, your potential future father-in-law has told you exactly where he stands, and that would be the end of that relationship for me. I'm not going to stand there and try to be nice to him and all this kind of thing when he's not respecting you either. He's all this stuff about earning his respect, but he's not showing you any of that. And many people don't agree with this whole asking for blessings and stuff like that in today's day and age. But you wasn't asking him for his permission in this. So you can ask your girlfriend anyway. And I think, from my personal point of view, if I was in your position, I'd be telling your girlfriend, I'd be setting up boundaries and saying, he doesn't like me, I'm not having anything to do with him no more. And girlfriend's got to decide what she wants to do with that information in the end. And a user quotes OP where he said he was absolutely livid and then says, there are some people that don't trust kindness. You can't win them over. Everything is always a suspect or sign of deviousness. I'll tell your girlfriend about this before you propose. She needs to know what she's going to walk into with her family before she says yes to you. Hopefully she still wants to marry and is prepared to deal with her family appropriately. If so, you get married without his blessing and stop trying with this guy. Just ignore him from now on and avoid her family events whenever possible. He has to have a change of heart in order to treat you decently. So let him experience absence and grow a desire to change and not drive people away. And after that comment and just looking back at it as well, and the girlfriend keep brushing off this kind of behavior from father. And I have to say that she's also enabling this. She's, don't worry about it, he was just intoxicated, excusing his behavior and the way he's being shitty towards you, which is also not on. Another commenter says propose to your girlfriend anyway. Asking the father's permission is archaic and ridiculous. If you and your girlfriend love each other, it doesn't matter if daddy approves or not. Edit. Obviously, if it's something she thinks is important, then you have an issue. If not, ignore her, jerk off dad and marry her. Another user says propose to her anyway. You're both adults and you know where her father stands. If she wants to marry you, she will marry you whether or not he approves. And if he doesn't, he will come around just like he came around with the wearables. At the same time, I think you've been brown-nosing him too much, which is understandable, but you have a life. You have a good excuse for not being there, and he can be more understanding of that. You can be more assertive, he'll respect you for standing up for yourself. And another user says, this'll get buried, but heck, this kind of guy I would choose battle. In no roundabout way, tell him you will fight for her hand. Roll your sleeves up and get your fists ready. Either he'll fight you and win, but respect you for fighting and potentially change his mind, or you win and he has to suck it up. Pretty sure he would leave his crap at the door after this though. Come on, man. I just put some sort of wild situation in my hand, like this guy turned up to the dad knocking on the door. Future father-in-law, I'm here for your blessing. Can I marry your daughter? He turns around and says no. Well, a duel it is. Meet me in the garden at sunrise. Bring your dueling pistols. Oh, man. And roughly around 3 years later, OP made another post in the relationship advice subreddit and said, I'm trapped in a marriage I think is one-sided and I need advice. I'm not sure what I would get out of this. I feel like writing it all down and having a stranger over it might give me some mental clarity. But I think at this point there's no way to salvage our marriage. Also, English is not my native language, so apologies for any errors which cause misunderstandings. I've been in a relationship with my wife for almost 9 years now, married for 2. Our relationship has been, for the most part, a fulfilling and satisfying one for the both of us. It seems like I'm making self-congratulating posts, but we've become better people by virtue of being together. I'm an old-fashioned person, so it was difficult to meet a woman who liked the things I liked and had the opinions I had. The only unsavory part of our relationship over the years has been my relationship with my father-in-law. My wife and I rarely have disagreements, so most of the major fights we've had were because of her father. I want to be clear here that I don't hate him. I respect the guy. He sacrificed a lot in his personal life in order to provide for his family and to make sure my wife was raised with love and care. I used to look up to him in the earlier years of the relationships. He and my mother-in-law would host the family twice every week. When I first started dating their daughter, it took me by surprise how close they were as a family. I really liked the family events with these picturesque dinners of mild conflicts and contentment, with how close my wife was with all of her siblings and her parents too. Early on in the relationship, I think I freaked out my wife by how much I enjoyed being at her parents' house. Her mother was a saint of a woman who gave me so much love from the get-go. She would always make sure I was included in family activities and often reserved a seat for me at the family dinner right next to her, talking to me like I was one of her own. I remember one time I was over at their place and had to get back to the city for work. It was getting pretty late when I got up to leave and it had been snowing. She came down from her room when I was leaving with an overcoat of her husband saying I should take the coat with me, just in case. I know it was because she knew my car got cold those days. It was a piece of shit car getting to the end of its life. She didn't want me to feel like she thought less of me just because I made less money than my wife. These little mum things she would do made me love her so much. Anyway, the reason I bring up my mother-in-law was because I think she was the reason her husband was accepting of me at the time. She died 4 years ago and it somehow changed him. I think his love meter broke or something. He started acting like I somehow slighted him all the time. Like one time my wife and I were bringing over some groceries and restocking everything, and I thought it'd be nice to stay for dinner and cook for him. While he was out for his evening walk, wife and I prepared a nice dinner. At dinner, he thanked my wife for it. She mentioned that I did most of the work for it and he kinda looked at me and just stopped talking. Another time in September of 2016, we were staying at his place for the weekend because we were cooking the family dinner. Early morning, wife and I were sitting on the breakfast counter, just starting our day, and we thought he was out because he was usually the first one up. I hit my wife on her leg over a stupid pun or something, and I guess he saw because he came over and started yelling at me about not being raised right and being a woman beater. He said a lot of extremely toxic things about me before my younger sister-in-law came into the kitchen and practically dragged him out. My wife repeatedly said that it was a joke, but he wouldn't accept the explanation, saying she sticks up for me. Similarly, I remember one time, this was when his wife was alive. I bought him a gift and he straight up refused to accept it in front of the whole family. My wife's mother, brother and his family, including sister-in-law, both sisters, their husbands and the elder sister's kid were there. It was such a humiliating experience for me. I just wanted the man to not hate me all the time. I think my mother-in-law forced him to accept the gift after a few days and made him apologize to me. After my mother-in-law died, he changed. It was like his filter was gone. He would stay in his room a lot, only come out for his errands and walks. He wouldn't watch the games with me, saying I talk too much. He wouldn't let me fix anything at the house despite me practically living there and having done a lot of work in the house in the past.
A popular theory among my friends was that he hated me because I was too close to his wife, which sounds so absurd. She was a maternal figure in my life, and I can't for the life of me understand why that would piss him off. She was nice to everyone. My wife is nice to everyone too, to the point of it being a fault. My mother-in-law used to say that she had 4 sons. Her son, 2 husbands of my wife's sisters, and me. So it's not like I was inappropriately close with a woman. I've discussed this with my wife a lot too, but she is always insistent that my relationship with her mother has nothing to do with it. My wife is the youngest daughter, so she treats her father with a lot of love and respect. Early on in our relationship, his behavior wasn't an issue, and by the time it became an issue, we were already too serious for me to break it off over this. Everyone else in her family likes me as far as I know. I've been invited over by both of her sisters at multiple times for lunches, dinners, favors, etc. Everyone treats me like I'm family. I've talked to the eldest sister about why their father hates me, but she always maintained that he doesn't hate me. She says he loves his youngest daughter a lot and has always been a difficult person to please. And honestly, I can see that it's true. On an average day, he's most tolerant of me out of all of his sons-in-law. But they all live in different cities or states, and wife and I live in the same neighborhood. So he gets to see me more. I'm sure a part of his resentment is because of that too. After my mother-in-law died, we were all heartbroken. A few days after her funeral, when everyone was starting to leave, my wife and I were going through some of the stuff that her mother left her. She started getting choked up about the fact that the house felt like it had died with her. We decided that we're going to take on the mantle of cooking for family dinners like our mum used to do. It's a pretty big responsibility considering the family is almost never all together except maybe one holiday a year. Sometimes it would just be my father-in-law, brother-in-law and his family and us. It was actually really nice for a while. Everyone kept visiting once in a while and the routine was nice. I was glad to have more time for family and not being harassed by father-in-law. It felt like he was warming up to me. At that time, wife and I started talking about marriage and it just felt right. I don't think I was ever more sure about anything than about marrying my wife at the time. There was a brief moment before the engagement where she and I got into a fight, but things worked out nicely. We got engaged in May and it just set things in motion. My wife is the youngest child in her family and she got a lot of positive attention from her siblings. They kept her mother's wedding accessories for her, which honestly was just a nice thing to do. And slowly, over the months, it became this big and happy event in our family. Winter of 2016, when we got married, my wife sat me down and asked me if it'd be okay to move back in with her father to take care of him. I think that was the moment where I made the stupidest decision of my life when I said yes. I was blinded by love, not just for my wife, but for her family, for her mother, who I miss so much, for her father, who liked me but never really accepted me, and for her siblings, who liked me like I was their own. I just thought about what would be best for everyone else. A month after we moved in, my father-in-law asked his son if he could come stay with them for a while. At the time, it felt like a good thing that he was moving past the grief of his wife's death. But I don't think that's why he visited his son. He just wanted to get out of the house because of me. A few weeks later, when he got back, his passive-aggressive bullshit started again. But this time, it was just constant nagging over small, petty things. I moved the chair. No, I didn't. I broke the thermostat. No, I changed it for good measure. I forgot to put the tools back. I messed up the library. Things like that. Almost if I'm a child who's unwanted in the house. May 2017, we had a huge fight and I gave my wife a choice to either live with me or live with her father. That made her have a fight with her father and she decided she was going to move out because, in her own words, he is never going to accept you as his son. He's delusional in grief. So we moved out, but still lived close by because both our jobs were quite close. Our moving out, however, messed up the whole family dinner tradition, as our father refused to come to our place for dinners, and we couldn't afford to host the whole family in our small apartment. It became a logistical nightmare. So our brother stepped up and said he was going to do it. I think their father was really mad at me for ruining the tradition because at every single dinner I had with him, he wanted nothing to do with me. I actually liked it this way because it was nice to not be attacked or defended all the time, but my wife started resenting me for it, and I think her younger sister and brother did too. It's been almost 2 years since we moved out. I don't attend family dinners with much regularity, maybe once a month if I'm being generous. I also got busier at work, so I've been spending less time with wife during the weekdays, which I prefer because her resentment towards me is making it a very difficult situation. She goes over to her brother's house every other weekend, and the other weekend is spent at her father's place where her brother's family and she get together for dinner. The only person on my side is my older sister-in-law because she thinks her father has treated me badly. She's visited us twice over the last year, and it's the only time I've gotten any affection from my in-laws. It feels like up until 2 years ago, I had a huge family who all loved me, and now I'm getting more and more lonely by the month. I can't help but feel that the marriage has changed our lives for the worse. It's been more than 2 months since my wife and I have been intimate in our bedroom. It's been a lot longer since we've had a date for ourselves. I'm at a complete loss as to what I can do to improve things. So on the back of this one, the Great Goatsy asks OP, they said, this was quite a journey and I feel awful for you, man. If I may ask, have you at any point sat down with your father-in-law to speak calmly about how his treatment of you affects not only you but your marriage? Have you ever attempted to ask him straight up what his problem with you is? This sounds like an extremely tense environment that's been made so much worse through the passivity of everyone involved. The loss of your mother-in-law clearly struck the entire family and the devastation is still palpable. Communication is poor between everyone. I think if you hope to save your marriage, the two of you should start couples therapy. The professional opinion of an impartial third party could really help with the situation as a whole. OP replies that and says, couples therapy is something I wanted to look into, but I think my wife feels like I've become a villain in her life and she just wants to maintain the status quo because she's afraid of divorce as I am. I've been talking about therapy for some time, so I bring it up to my wife and see how things proceed. Then OP quotes the section about speaking to father-in-law calmly and says, I've tried a number of times. I tried to do that when my mother-in-law was alive too. He always maintained that I was not the right man for his daughter and was a phony person. Like I was putting up a show of niceness. The last couple of years, I think there's too much bad blood between us for us to sit down together man to man and talk it out. He's not necessarily a big feelings guy. I'm ashamed to admit that at times I thought if the reason he has accepted me is because I'm the only son-in-law who makes less money than my wife does. They are a really rich family, and it was really obvious from the first time I was invited over at their place. OP then gives us another smaller update and says, some folks have messaged me asking for an update, so I thought I could post it here instead of personal messages. I've been reading a lot of relationship help books and tried to talk to my wife many times. However, the fact is, she and I just don't work as a couple anymore. I'm no longer a priority in her life and I'm not okay with it. So last month I decided to talk to my lawyer and initiate divorce. It's been a really stressful time, especially from almost all of her family. But at this point I just want to look after myself and recover myself from this relationship. The folks at Dead Bedrooms have been helpful as well. I read through so many posts there which kind of opened my eyes to the nature of my marriage. Once again, thank you people who helped me in my previous post. So this year, November 2023, OP makes a new post. Just before we get into it, they got married in 2017 and divorced in 2020. The title of this post was, my ex-wife, female 33 and I, male 35, recently reconnected after she went through a bad breakup. Is it bad that I want to get back together with my ex-wife because of how lonely I am? There's some context to why we got divorced, but it will take too long to explain here. The summary is that I could not get along with her family and mostly her father, and that made my marriage an unhappy place for me. Her father always hated me and at one point told me that my ex-wife deserved better than me. If you want to read about my relationship with him, it's in the previous posts. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to provide links. But after our divorce, I lost a lot of family and friends. I was very involved with family on her side, and losing them all at the same time because we got divorced made things difficult for me. I'm an immigrant here, so I did not have many friends outside of my ex-wife's family. During the divorce process, the COVID lockdown started and that killed all my relationships with her side of the family, and I was really lonely here for a long time. I tried to go on dates, but the dating culture is so different now than 15 years ago. I could not find a person I wanted to spend more time with, but I think it was in part my fault too. And the one person who showed interest in long-term dating, she was much younger than me. I did not like her friends and her friends were not thrilled with me either, so that relationship kinda died in 2021. Since then I've stopped going on dates even, and I've lost touch with some friends and acquaintances because of COVID, or maybe because of age and not having a wife. Like they are all family men now, so making time is a difficult thing. But anyway, I saw my ex-wife a few times in the last 2 years and we exchanged some quick words about well-being, but nothing substantial. I knew she lost her father due to COVID and I told her I was sorry for her loss because he loved her very much. She also told me she was dating a younger man and it was going well. However, we never sat down for tea or anything, it just never happened. But 2 months ago I got a message from her saying she wanted to meet for lunch. During this lunch, she told me a relationship of 1 year and some months was not going well, and she was thinking of breaking up with her boyfriend. She and him did not agree on kids or not having kids, and she did not see a future with him. We kept in touch through the last 2 months, and 12 days ago she broke up with him. She told me a part of the reason was that after talking to me, she remembered how it was with me when we first started dating, and how it was not the same with her boyfriend. She and I have been talking a lot in the last few weeks. Since the breakup, the first thing she does after waking up every morning is message me. And then 2 days ago, she called at 7 in the morning saying she was at my door with some food. I'd been feeling ill, but I don't remember when I told her. However, she came with a lot of home-cooked foods and soups, which she knows I like. It felt like we're back in time 10 years ago. It's been a very confusing time since then. I'm not sure what I feel. I think I'm starting to love her again. She pays me so much attention, which is nice. She also keeps sending me food or bringing it herself. And then last night she spent the night because I was too ill to get up and clean after myself. Nothing happened between us, but at the same time I think she wants to talk about us dating again. Maybe, and I will admit, all the attention and food and other gestures of love and care are starting to feel incredible. I'm not sure who to talk to about this. I think I need to keep her away for a few days to be able to think clearly. It has been so long since I felt this good about myself. And a lot of our relationship problems were from how her father acted with me. I keep thinking maybe we can try again, and this time it will be better. Any advice or anyone wants to talk to help me think here, I would really appreciate it. And we do have another little further update in a second. And the comments, there was a couple of comments, saying probably get back into this relationship and revert to the same kind of relationship that you had before the breakup. Things might change now her father's not in the picture. Other people saying could give it a try and rekindle your old relationship, etc. And I'm going to have to be honest in the way that this post made me feel. And I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong. I never am. But just the feeling as I'm getting from reading the post and previous posts, other stories that I may have read may have skewed my view over time, So I think that's fair to say. But I got to say, this update has rubbed me the wrong way. It almost feels like you're a safe relationship and she's just come out of a breakup, so she's gonna go for you now. You're clearly in a very, very vulnerable position. You mentioned several times that you're lonely and you're feeling down about that and you've got no one around you. So of course, receiving all this affection and love towards you is going to feel absolutely fantastic. But that's also considered love bombing, which we've seen many a time in different stories. Obviously, I can't guarantee that it is. She might absolutely have fallen in love with you and everything's going to be perfect again. I don't know that, do I? From what I'm personally seeing and the way that I'm feeling about this post, it's concerning to me. And then thinking about the rest of your story so far and the way that you was treated in the past, it just doesn't sit right with me. Of course, people change, people can be better. She may have been poisoned by her father going to these family meals when you wasn't attending and, he's whispering in her ear that you're not right for her, turning her against you. But that's not your fault. You didn't deserve that. And you don't have to forgive the way that you was treated either if you don't want to. Sure, you can talk to her, get to know her, but like I said, I don't feel right about it. So a couple of days after that post, Opie gives another update and says, as for the update, it is a mixed bag. On Saturday, she came over to talk about our relationship and what we both wanted, what went wrong, etc. She asked to speak first, and I really should have talked first instead, but I let her say her part. It was focused on her relationship with her whole family, how important her father was to her, how much involved everyone else was in her relationship with me. She said sorry for letting her family, and her father in particular, meddle in our marriage. One of the things which hurt me a lot was when she mentioned that her ex-boyfriend never wanted to be around her family and hated going to any family events or even to a simple dinner, etc. She said that's when she realized how much easier I had made things for her in our marriage. It was incredibly hurtful because I remember telling her in so many different ways and at many times, even before the death of her mother, that I was okay with her family's involvement, but she needed to keep some distance between our relationship and her father in particular. She said that one time her father said something nasty directed at her ex-boyfriend, and after that time, he refused to be in the same room as him. And I told her that he was right in doing that. I reminded her of the time when her father told me, after 5 years of our relationship, that he did not want to give me his blessing for asking you to marry. I don't know why, but hearing her say that she saw her family's behavior towards her boyfriend and that was what helped her see how toxic they can be was really hurtful. Like my feelings and my protest did not matter to her as much. I told her that and she had tears in her eyes. She said sorry a lot of times about it. She said she was young and inexperienced at first, and then after her mother died, she was scared of losing her father, and anything I said about him was difficult for her to hear because of that. I remember one time we were hosting the family dinner, and her father said hurtful things about my cooking, and I brought it up with her from one of her siblings, and she refused to hear me, even when her sister told her she should listen because I was right. Anyway, when we got talking about her father, the conversation kind of got away from me. We ended up talking about him for like 2 hours. I think she wanted to get a lot of it off her chest too. It was very emotional and exhausting though, as afterwards I did not have the energy to continue talking. I really wished I had talked first because I wanted to talk to her about our problems in the bedroom as well. But we had to make food first. She was saying how much she missed cooking with me and being around each other. I guess that's another thing her ex-boyfriend did not appreciate about her. After making lunch together, we just sat eating and talking about the few times we had some time for ourselves when we were married. She mentioned how much she liked going on 2 road trips we took together after we got married. For context, we used to have a lot more time when we first started dating as we were still studying. But then after getting jobs and having to take care of a house, it slowly diminished. After we finished lunch, I was too tired to continue our conversation, so we just kind of existed around each other for a little bit. We did talk about what we should not expect if we started dating. I told her I want to talk about our bedroom problems, but maybe not right away. She told me she wanted to say sorry for not listening to me about that too. She was a very selfish lover and told me it was a difficult thing for her to not realize she ignored my needs in the marriage. She said if we dated again, she wants us to see a relationship counselor together and by herself to make our dating life better. I think it is a good idea to talk to someone who can help me explain my side of things to her. I'm not confident how helpful the conversation can be if it's just the two of us. She has a tendency to talk over me or to agree with me but not let me say my part. I want to talk to her about it too, but I think it's better if I wait until we found some relationship counselor. But still, I think the outcome of the conversation yesterday was good. I want to ask her out on a date tonight for maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. She went back to her house last night and I missed her presence around me a lot. I don't know if that's a good sign or if it means that I'm too lonely. When she was here yesterday, she got a call from one of her siblings and she mentioned me by name. I was not listening in, but I just heard her say my name and my ears pricked up on that part. I feel like that should be a good sign too, or maybe I'm just desperate to look for anything positive and take that as a sign. She wanted to come over today, but I told her I'm feeling much better and she doesn't need to cook for me today. Also, I spent the morning today looking through our old pictures together. It was nice to remember the person she used to be. I feel like yesterday I saw a little bit of that person in her. Am I wrong to want to start something so soon? I know I said previously that I would wait, but waiting for the sake of it seems pointless. I do want to take things slow, but I want us to find a relationship counselor soon. But I'm afraid I will lose her if I show no interest. And I still feel the same after that update, especially when OP saying, how lonely they are and things like that, and you're receiving this affection. I think it would really skew your view. Obviously, you need to make the decision that you need to make in the end, but I don't think getting back together is a good plan. In this update in itself, you mentioned she has a tendency to talk over you and agree with you, but not actually let you say your part. She's not actually listened to you again. And my mind keeps casting back. You said that she was talking to her siblings, and they all turned their back on you by the sounds of it when they all went to these dinners and they didn't want much to do with you anymore during the whole divorce part. And it was just like one of the previous comments said, it just feels like if you was to get back together, hypothetical situation, that the whole situation could revert to what it was before. Father isn't in the picture, but it still felt like it was the same with some of the other family members too, and she would quickly switch to them if, you had an argument or something like that. She doesn't have your back in this, if you like. Like I said, maybe I've read one too many stories, So that brings me nicely to, what's your opinion on this story? What would you advise to OP? Do you think there is a relationship in this in the future? How would you tackle that? Do you think counseling is going to get them through it? Or do you think the loneliness is playing a part in this? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the compilation. Your love, support and time always does mean the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved today. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. let's go. See the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day.